financial year, end of every financial year, and this is something that we cannot take for granted. For the 3 years or 4 that we've been working together, allow me inform you that very many youth organizations in Uganda have a lot of issues, and have a lot, government brings about a lot of policies that are not so easy, to be in position to survive as an entity or youth organization. We've also had a few challenges, but I want to say that we hope that the British High Commission can continue funding some of our work to help us also realize that we be in position to work upon these challenges as an entity. And for the National Development Plan, we want to take this opportunity to appreciate you for accepting our proposal of working together, but also for accepting to be part of this engagement today. We want this to be an entry point where we can start officially working together and create a linkage between youth population or youth movement in Uganda and the National Development Plan, so that we can always constantly be engaging with you to help amplify voices of young people at that level, so that you can also be actively participating and also working with young people at a level of development and implementing partners. The other remark goes to the Minister of Gender. The Commissioner is here. I like calling him a senior youth, Mr. Mondo. We appreciate the support that you always give us as an entity. And we also appreciate that a few years back we had started working on a journey of ensuring that we work as official partners to the ministry, much as that journey was antagonized by, also affected by COVID-19. We are committed to ensure that, again, this national policy dialogue could be a platform that could help us also to ensure that streamline our working relationship between the ministry directly and civil society organization, particularly Open Space Center. All that is said in the voice of Mr. Wakibunya, who permitted me to give those remarks on behalf of him. Thank you so much. At this moment, ladies and gentlemen, we shall rush to I'm going to give back the microphone to the moderator of the day, Commissioner Mondo, who is going to take us through the programs, and also we see what can be done next. Thank you so much for listening to me. I want to wish you a good deliberation ahead of the day, but I also want to keep the promise of ensuring that we let you leave at the time that we promised. Thank you, and have a good day.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, the British High Commissioner to Uganda, representatives of development partners, the open space leadership, the youth and youth-led organizations here present, colleagues from ministries, departments and agencies, I want to warmly welcome you to this important dialogue. I want to thank the British High Commission for thinking it important and imperative to have the voices of the young people reflected within NDP IV. We want to thank you. Can we clap for that? At the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, we believe in the asset-based approach to youth programming, which does not position young people as listeners and targets to be met, but as players in their own right. We are therefore happy to have this dialogue, which focuses on listening to the young people getting guided to see what is the most critical issues that we have to think about within NDP IV. The National Development Plan 4 is the fourth in a series of 6 national development plans that will guide the nation in delivering the aspirations articulated in Uganda Vision 2040. The plan will define the broad direction for the country and set key objectives, interventions, and targets for sustainable socio-economic transformation of Uganda. We need to note that the Uganda Vision 2040 aims to transform the Ugandan society from a peasant to a modern and prosperous society. And I'm happy to note that about last week, and Judith and Dr. Mugenda were around here, I learned from the papers that we are now in the lower middle income country. Can we clap for that? Of course, it will take a lot of efforts to transform to the middle income. And of course, to transform where Britain is to the first development countries. The vision of our country is a transformed Ugandan society from a peasant to a modern and prosperous country within 30 years. Our duty this morning is to hear what is that we want to see within NDP IV in regard to the young people in this country. Let me emphasize that our duty in the coming next few years is to continue destabilizing the profile of poverty, the arrogance of poverty, the arrogance of unemployment in this country. That is a duty for all of us to do, and we must do it. It's not delegatable. Each of us must play his or her role. I'm informed that the British High Commissioner will be leaving in a few minutes for other equally important duties. May it please you, therefore, to allow me invite the British High Commissioner to come and speak to us. Karibu. Whatever you choose, either here or there.
I'll sit next to you. Okay. I'll steal this one then. Good morning, everybody. I liked that very much, that the young people are prayers in their own right. I thought that was a beautiful quote. Can I just start by a thank you, not just to everybody here, but also a big thank you to the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, as well as the National Planning Authority, because dialogue cannot be dialogue if there are not partners involved across peace. So it is very, very good to see you present, and thank you very, very much, Mr. Mondo, for welcoming so kindly. I am very pleased to be talking to you this morning, and I'm very pleased that the British government, the British High Commission, has supported this dialogue and supported open space for a while now. And that's because we believe absolutely fervently in ensuring that the perspectives and interests of young Ugandans are placed at the heart of national policy making. You all know why this is. It's about numbers. Uganda is one of the youngest populations in the world, 10.9 million Ugandans between the ages of 18 and 30. I cannot tell you, ladies and gentlemen, what a contrast that is with my country. You are blessed. You are right. They are prayers in their own right. And that blessing, that opportunity shouldn't be squandered. Around 700,000 young Ugandans are joining the workforce every year. By 2030, that will be 1 million every year, 1 million jobs that need to be created every year. That is an extraordinary number. It is quite a challenge. It is a potential for a huge opportunity, but if mismanaged, also a very difficult situation. And it means that more than anywhere else in the world, young people's success here in Uganda will be Uganda's success as well. And our experience as the British High Commission here in Uganda is in these 10.9 million young Ugandans, there is an absolute abundance of talent. You are sitting on a gold mine of human capital here in Uganda. There is not a capacity problem here in Uganda. You have an abundance. And we are privileged. We get to see this on a daily basis, whether it's from achieving scholars following their careers through study in the UK and then bringing that study back here to Uganda. It's amongst them passionate women and men implementing UK-funded programs on health or on humanitarian, or it's among young business owners that we're supporting who are actively attracting investment from across our world and bringing it here to Uganda. And if young talent here is anything to go by, then Uganda's future has the promise of being very bright indeed. But, and I know that the government officials here know, and I know you understand this, Ms. Rondo, is that that young talent can't power Uganda's future prosperity if it's not given the opportunities to do that. It is all about policy being right to harness that young people. They need access, you know this, to education and to training. They need to be equipped to make sure that they're ready for the modern workforce. And ladies and gentlemen, that workforce is changing more radically than it ever has in the history of mankind. They need an economy that's able to create productive jobs, to provide a decent wage that people can live on. And they need access to healthcare to enable people to stay in work and to plan their families effectively. So this youth policy paper that's being presented later today shows us that there are these huge opportunities, but there's also a lot of work to be done if Uganda is going to achieve this ambition. That almost 20% of young Ugandans are neither in employment, education or training, and it's, as a feminist, I have to tell you, it's worse for women here than it is for men, and that's a stark contrast. And it's higher than the national average. It's higher than some of the regional averages, and it risks squandering that immense potential you are sitting on. Young people, we find, and arguably sometimes maybe we are guilty of this too, often have development done to them. They're often target groups or beneficiaries. But we've learnt over the years, as has Uganda, and we've learnt through together with you, that actually that development, that empowerment only works when it's guided by the people it most affects. And that's why I'm particularly proud, we at the British High Commission are particularly proud that we've been able to support this dialogue and to support open space. It's not about us giving you our opinions, you don't need those. It's actually about creating solutions that challenges faced by young people, developed by young people, for young people. And it's encouraging, as I've said at the beginning, to see just actually how receptive people from across the system, the establishment, the government of Uganda are to that dialogue. And again, a big thank you. I am government. I work for the British government. Dialogue isn't always the easiest thing to do for us. And I'm very, very pleased to see how open you are here today. So thank you. Big thank you to you. I think those proposals, there's some really good, solid, concrete proposals, actually, from open space, from the conversations that have been had so far. I think they're really interesting. I've learnt something today. Thank you for that. And it's good that those are going to be discussed here today, explored further here today. And I think actually making sure that we have those concrete steps necessary also to place the needs and perspectives of young people in the centre of national development efforts, and particularly NDP IV. And I think there are some challenges. You know, policy, one of the beauty about policy, about being part of policy development, is you are never done. You are always tweaking, changing, implementing, seeing how you can have a greater impact achieve the overall objectives you're seeking to achieve. And this conversation here today is really about ensuring that that happens as effectively as possible. NDP IV as the anchor for setting Uganda's approach to its long-term development is extremely welcome, and today is a crucial opportunity for all of you, for you young people in particular who will determine Uganda's future, to shape it, to meet your needs and aspirations. So I encourage you to seize this opportunity, and we look forward to hearing about a very successful suite of conversations today and meetings today. Thank you very much. It's our privilege to be able to support Open Space, and it's our privilege to be able to support you all in this conversation. Please make the most of it. Thank you very much.
If you mean to clap, you really clap. How many of you had seen her at close range like I am and like you are, speaking to us and giving assurance? Can I now command you as your commissioner that you clap better than that? That's much better. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have the human resource here in terms of numbers, but that will depend on how we harness the numbers, transform the numbers into real capable, skilled, quality human resource. That's where we want to go. And I want to thank you for emphasizing that. But also the importance of dialogue. We don't need to go to the streets to shout. We need to sit in a place like this and talk about the issues that affect us. And that's the most civilized manner through which people resolve problems. He has also touched an issue which many of you don't want to listen to, the issue of planned families. Your Excellency, 56% of all the pregnancies in this country are unintended. 24% of the pregnancies are a result of teenage production. And that exactly destabilizes the plans the National Planning Authority and other people put in place. So the issue of harnessing, but also having planned families, have been emphasized, and I want to thank you. And I want to thank you. If I were Charles Dickens in Oliver Twist, I would say, we want some more. But you have already promised that you'll provide some more, you'll stand with us, and for that, let's clap again. I know, Your Excellency, you have other demands on your time, and if you have to go, I'll request somebody to see you off. Ashraf will be able to see you off. But thank you so much. We shall give you the whole report of what would have transpired here. Thank you. May I now, on that very note, invite a friend of mine we have worked with for a number of years on issues of population, on issues of planning, a dedicated servant of government who, even you wake her up, she'll talk about planning for this country. She has done it through thick and thin, and she continues to do a meticulous job. Judith Mutawazi is the manager of population and social sector planning in this country. She's here to represent Dr. Joseph Muvawala, the Executive Director, National Planning Authority, who could not make it this morning to this meeting. She's going to take us through a keynote address and official opening. The address will highlight the emerging strategic thrust of the NDP IV, emphasizing propositions to reposition youth-specific initiatives in the plan. youth-specific issues in the plan. We want to see them because the youth in this country constitute 21.3% of the population. That's contrary to what many people say, that 78% of Ugandans are youth. That's not correct. That's youth and children. In Uganda, we define a youth as somebody between 18 and 30. So that percentage is 21.3%, over 10 million out of the about 43, 45 million Ugandans are youth. And this can be the most dangerous left unengaged. She will take us through issues of need. How many youth in this country are not employed, they are not in education, and they are not in training. Dr. Hamis Mugendawala was telling me the other day that they are 41%, and that translates into 4.2 million Ugandans. Can you imagine? Not in employment, not in education, and not in training. And that this number is projected to grow to 5.8 million if nothing is done on the status quo. And that should make all of us worried. Can I therefore invite the guru in this area, Ms. Judith Mutabazi, Mayor Manager Population and Social Sector Planning, to come and walk us through the journey. Can you clap as she comes? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, Madam.
Thank you, moderator, for that generous introduction. Really privileged to be talking to the youth and priorities for the youth in NDP IV. That is the docket I handle on a daily basis at NPA. So it would also be good to listen to what the youth are saying physically, different from the theories we've had and evidence from various research studies. So as the previous speaker has said, our population is growing. We take note that in the last census we are only 34.4 million, and we've grown to 45 million. But it's still projected to grow to 55 million in 2030, given the growth rate that we had of 3%. The youth population between 18 and 30 is projected to increase from 7.9 million from 2015 to 13 million by 2030. I think you can see if we're almost doubling from 7.9 to 13 million by 2030. This implies that the growth rate for the youth group is 3.6, which is much higher than the average population growth rate of 3%. Uganda's population will continue to grow over the next 30 years due to the high fertility rate. As the moderator has said, we have one of the highest fertility rates, I think second in the world, with every woman producing 5.4 children, with rapidly declining mortality rates. And the result has been doubling over for the population every 20 years with high child dependency ratio. I think the British representative talked about it. We have high dependency because most of our population is young children, Mr. Mondo also elaborated on it. Children who are not in the working age population and they are not productive, so causing a high child dependency ratio. Uganda's population is young. More than 75% are aged below 30 years. This means that 3/4 of the population is aged less than 25 years. The youth constitute 24% of the total population by 2022, and this proportion was projected to increase given the current high fertility rate. However, the quality of the population matters. Realizing the benefits from the population can only be possible if there is a change in the age composition from young and dependent to a working age group, also when the population is well educated and skilled to engage in the production activities. The change in age composition creates a window of opportunity to potentially raise savings and investment, a phenomenon now that we call demographic dividend. As he said, the moderator, we've been pushing a lot of population issues, and yes, we are seeing some positive change. We are still looking forward to the current census that is going to be conducted. Hopefully our statistics will have improved. We've seen some improvement also in the recent disseminated Uganda Demographic Health Survey indicators. Mortality have reduced. Maternal mortality indicators have also reduced. We've had also reduced infant mortality and increased life expectancy indicators, meaning Ugandans are living longer. Our life expectancy has shifted from 46 to 63 now in the last UDHS study. So we are going to live longer, but live longer contributing what to the economy. That is how we shall be able to harness the dividend. So we have prioritized harnessing the dividend in various planning frameworks with the 5 pillars we look at. One of the key drivers is, of course, focusing on family planning, but also we are looking at ensuring education is very key, ensuring girls stay in school longer, especially that they complete. In our NDP IV, we had target of 11 years of schooling, and 11 years means 7 years of primary and 4 years of secondary. And we think the longer girls stay in school, we shall reduce the teenage pregnancy our moderator talked about. We shall improve on their employability, the quality of the choice of decision on the number of children they have to have. So those are issues that we need to look at. The other pillar in focusing on the demographic dividend is ensuring we create enough jobs. The economic pillar, are there enough jobs for Ugandans? Then also urbanization is a key strategy that we need to focus on and advocate for stronger political support. And I think the youth area is an area that has had a lot of political support given the structures we have, even in governance, at both national level, at parliament representation, at local government level. And I think the youth issues have been really brought out at all levels with different partners. And we also, I think at this note, I need to appreciate the new appointment of the youth, and we hope we shall see more support and appreciation and prioritization of youth issues. So, as we continue to prioritize in NDP IV, we still have challenges, as my moderator talked about. We still have challenges of high teenage pregnancies, which are causing our children to drop out of school. But in that line, on the pillars I talked about, in NDP IV, we also prioritized issues of harnessing the demographic dividend and the various programs, but they are mainly mainstreamed in the Human Capital Development Program, among other 20 programs. And this is specifically issues to do with declining fertility rate, to change the age structure, and then as well as education, quality health, nutrition issues, employment issues, gender equality issues, as well as livelihood programs for the youth. Youth is one of the 17 cross-cutting issues in NDP IV, which is mainstreamed in most of the programs, and we think that youth issues are not only housed under Ministry of Gender, but at planning level, we look at youth issues in agriculture, we look at youth issues in technology, ICT, we look at youth issues in tourism, we look at youth issues in governance and human rights, we look at youth issues in all programs. That is why we call it a cross-cutting issue. So among the various challenges they've talked about the youth, yes, poverty is still also an issue. We still have high poverty incidences, and we think as long as we have the widening poverty gaps, we still have challenges that will affect the youth. Then we also have high dropout rates, as we said, which contribute to that stagnated teenage pregnancy of 25% since 2016. It has not changed. Hopefully, we need a magic bullet to change this indicator. We have increased GBV cases, and the GBV cases, incidentally, are changing. The more male GBV cases are being reported than the female incidences, but also GBV has various other composite. It's a composite indicator, but it really affects the youth. We have high youth unemployment, which is still at 13%, and that is a big number compared to the national average unemployment rate, which is much lower than 13%. We have many youth as youth needs. Commission elaborated on that. These are people who are not in education, not in employment, not in any training. And these are Ugandans that should be working and contributing to our economy. Why? What is the problem? Of course, as he said, we did a study to find out the drivers of these youth needs, and the reports are available, and those are the issues, the recommendations that came out that we also take up into the next planning phase in NDP IV. We still have a high unpaid care work by women and youth. Unpaid care work, we can't quantify the hours you are employed or how much you're earning, but some people are just working and maybe getting little income, and they are not saving, they are not contributing to the economy, and you know what that means towards achieving our aspired GDP growth, though we have attained the middle income status. We still have limited access to affordable financial services, especially that are tailored to the youth with low interest rate, though there are some livelihood programs, but it's still an area that we can see how to harmonize. And then we also have a challenge of law embracing digital solution to support business, entrepreneurs, and innovation. We've tried to work on this using innovation hubs. Youth are very innovative. We are supporting digitalization of programs and development of apps, but are we yet there? How can you utilize this as open space to provide, it's an employment opportunity. We are moving into AI, artificial intelligence. How are our youth prioritizing this area? So going forward, in NDP IV, we are proposing as NPA, we shall continue to prioritize youth interventions, and actions will be mainstreamed in all medium-term frameworks and long-term frameworks, as well as ensuring that we harness the demographic dividend. The demographic dividend can only be attained if our pyramid gets a bulge in the middle. Right now, as all you're familiar, our pyramid has a wide base. That means high dependency. Most of our population are children. We need to have a bulge in the middle, and that is the youth bulge that we've started to experience. We are in that transition. We have the numbers, but we are saying, is it all about the numbers? But we need the quality numbers. Are our youth educated? Do we have employment opportunities for them? Have we given them the right skills? So those are the issues we ask ourselves as we prioritize for youth in development planning. Then we need to also create employment opportunities. so that there is improved employability and productivity. We need to see more people as they transit into the working age group. Where are the job opportunities? That 13% of youth unemployment, how can we reduce that figure by 2030? That will be the end of NDP IV. That will be our target. What are we going to do to ensure that percentage is reduced? We need to increase appropriate information, access and use of available youth livelihood programs. We take note we have various livelihood programs. The Youth Livelihood Program, we have EMIOGA, we have OWC, we have Parish Development Model. How are our youth benefiting from these financial services and using them to create employment opportunities? That is another area. And another area we need to focus on in NDP III, priority we shall continue ensuring and supporting youth representation at all levels for proper decision making. We had an engagement with Parliamentary Committee for Gender, and one of the issues they were saying, even yesterday we had an engagement on social protection, but they are emphasizing how can we recommend rationalization of the Youth Council, Children Council, Women Council, Disability Council, when this is the forums that are going to advocate for representation of this marginalized population. It is something that is going on, but at least we are yet to see the outcome. It's a decision that was taken, but it doesn't mean that once the Youth Council is gone, we shall stop prioritizing youth interventions. We shall still continue prioritizing them at national level because they contribute a lot towards our development outcomes. Then we need to also focus on promoting and nurturing change and in social and behavioral change. That is addressing social norms, misconceptions, negative mindset to improve uptake and social responsibility and accountability. That is where we should this will target in changing the mindset of especially the youth needs. One of the drivers of the youth needs we found there was high alcohol, drug abuse and alcohol use. Why would the youth engage in that activity instead of being engaged in employment? So those negative mindsets and lack of accountability, we think it affects uptake of government programs, and that is an area we shall continue focusing on, as well as we had it in NDP III under the Community Mobilization and Mindset Change Program. Then the other issue also, we shall continue implementing strategies that reduce inequalities and secure equity, especially among the marginalized youth. We know under the youth, we need to focus on which sex or segregated age that is left out. Is it the youth that are disabled? Is it the youth male or female? Is it the youth in school? Is it the youth in employment? So that we propose tailored specific strategies to reduce these inequalities. Then we shall continue empowering youth, both social and economically, in a joint effort with line ministries, local governments, CSOs, religious institutions, among others. This is in support of implementation. As you know, NPA, we are policymakers. We work closely with the ministries, departments and agencies, and local governments that also develop strategic plans and local government development plans that align to the plan. And that's where we map the different interventions that we've mapped, priorities at national level, and we continue monitoring, as well as CSOs and religious institutions who are our partners in implementing the plan. Then we shall also continue supporting improvement of political and legal environment to ensure some of these issues like youth use of drug abuse, alcohol, negative social norms are done through the local governments, that they can establish bylaws to reduce the negative behaviors. So that governance issue is very important, and then we shall be able to ensure we prioritize most of these issues at national level, but also at local government level. In conclusion, the country has made progress in attaining prioritization of youth programs. However, there's still a lot that needs to be done in increasing access to quality sexual and reproductive health services, ensuring girls stay longer in schools, youth economic empowerment interventions, as well as planning timely and employment opportunities that are going to make our population employable and productive. So going forward, we shall continue to address these issues of equity and empowerment and inclusiveness, and the role of government is to ensure we lead the process, but we need collaboration with faith-based organizations, cultural leaders, civil society, ministries, departments, as agencies, as well as all stakeholders to ensure we address this issue. National Planning Authority will continue to provide the leadership in planning, budgeting, and prioritizing of youth issues in the country's development frameworks. I thank you for listening to me.
Again thank you, Judith, for that insightful keynote address. A lot of issues she has raised. The population pyramid, the way it is right now, very few workers supporting so many consumers, and things don't happen that way. She has also said we are looking for quality population, not the quantity. We are not stopping anybody from producing the children they want to produce, as long as you know you can afford to give them education, to give them quality health, to dress them, to feed them. Yesterday I was reading an article that showed that only seven out of 100 children are fed on the right meals, meaning that 93% of us are fed on inappropriate meals. And somebody said that for you to talk about a balanced diet, you need 70 colors on your plate. Many of you do with starch every day, and so we produce starch. And when we don't see our children progressing, it's because of the kind of food that they eat. She has talked about the high poverty rates, 21.4%. And Mahatma Gandhi says poverty is the worst form of violence. High fertility rate, 5.4 children. And what she didn't emphasize is that the poor are producing more than the rich. The educated are producing lesser children than the uneducated. And that's why, as a girl child, she was advocating for girls staying longer at school. Imagine if Judith produced at the age of 13, we should have missed a human resource. Right? And so we need to invest there. The issue of digital migration. How much are we doing? And digital migration is here. It cannot wait. It's already here with us. We must migrate. When I was entering the lift, I found somebody who was fearing to enter. And I said, there we have it. She was fearing to enter. She didn't know which button to press. But yesterday I was in Arua, and I was discussing with a Japanese lady called Yukari. She said, "Did you know, Mondo, where I come from? Now even toilets are digitalized. You enter a room, they tell you that's a toilet. You enter there, you see nothing. Because you have to press somewhere, then it opens, and after you have done your duty, you don't have to press anywhere, it will press itself. So take somebody, a friend of mine from Nebi, and you take her there, then you'll find trouble. She will be there, stand, and it will be trouble." Artificial intelligence is going to take up a lot of jobs. 23% of the jobs, it has been documented, are not going to be there because of ICT. Those jobs will have to be reformed. So the younger people have to look in there and see, how do I avoid being replaced by artificial intelligence? Issues of innovation and creativity. She has also talked about creating employment opportunities. Deliberate. That when you are investing, you are looking at, am I creating a job for young people, for a young person? It has been said severally, and she's the one who introduced me to the concept, that we have jobless economic growth. And if you have jobless economic growth, you will say, okay, I'm growing at 6%, but where are the jobs? But also she was quick to add that we are mopping while the tap is open. If you're creating jobs, and you and me, good Ugandans, one of the things we do very well is manufacturing children. That one we do very well. Even right here, there could be somebody initiating the process of producing a child. Isn't this a hotel? Yes. Because people are no longer initiating production of children at night, but even during the day. You may think somebody has gone to work, yet he has gone to work on somebody. And so these are issues we must interrogate as younger people. How do we ensure that we are providing quality, we are producing quality population? Issues of environmental degradation. No one wants to be told now the vagaries of environmental degradation. Everybody has felt the heat. Everybody immediately says, you know, I no longer cover myself. I no longer put on pajamas. I no longer do this and the other. So we are feeling the heat. And you young people who are most educated, you are even more dangerous. Because once you get some money, like Ugandans want to say, you build a house, then you have a compound which is tiled from one end to another, and you call that modernity. Others go the extent of putting tiles. The entire compound is tiled. There is not a single tree. Not a single tree. How do you live in such a house? So these are issues we want to interrogate, and more, mindset change and others. Now, I want to invite Rehema Nakato, Program Officer, Open Space Center, to present to us the paper analyzing Uganda's youth demographics and development indicators. That provides policy and program proposals for inclusion in the National Development Plan 4. Having listened to Judith, what are our proposals of inclusion into National Development Plan 4? Nakato, can I invite you to take the floor?
Good morning once again.
Good morning, Madam.
My name is Nakato Rehema Sesimba, and I am the Programs Officer with Open Space Center Uganda. I appreciate the previous speakers for the insightful discussion. It's really interesting hearing about harnessing the demographic dividend, young people's health issues, but I think probably in future we would have cross-sectoral approaches that target young people's health issues, environmental issues altogether. So the purpose of today's gathering or the dialogue is to discuss the youth policy paper on NDP IV. So just a brief background is that as Open Space Center, over the course of 3 years, we have been implementing the Meaningful Youth Participation Program. This program was designed to address the ineffective youth participation in local government and local government planning processes, budgeting, etc., that we feel are very important to making the kind of leader who delivers what the young people in their community aspire for. So we have been running this program in 6 parishes. Currently, we added 3 more parishes to make it a total of 9 since the year 2021. And we have engaged youth leaders at parish level. So much of the discussion that we're going to have today are just policy and programmatic inclusion or aspirations of young people that have been consolidated from the different discussions that we've had. So, to get started, it's not moving. Yes. So this paper, as already mentioned by previous speakers, looks at analyzing Uganda's youth demographics and development indicators and provides policy and programmatic proposals for inclusion in the National Development Plan 4. So ladies and gentlemen, the reason why we are here is to dissect the key demographic challenge, that is the youth not in employment, education and training, who we have also termed as NEET. This particular demographic is estimated to be 2 million as we speak today. So as we go through the presentation and share information, we are going to look more and dissect on why are these young people not employed, not in education, and not in any form of training. So when we talk about the Uganda's youth situational analysis, the next 2 to 3 slides are going to be giving you an overview or painting a picture of what young people are, who they are in their different categories, and what key things we need to look out for as we plan for the National Development Plan 4. So as previously mentioned, Uganda's population is estimated at 45.5 million, of which 24% are young people between the ages of 18 to 30. So as the representative from the National Planning Authority had already mentioned, Uganda's population growth rate is at 3% annually. That means we are going to have roughly 370,000 young people entering the demographic of youth between the ages of 18 to 30 across the NDP IV period. This is expected to peak from the current 10.9 million to 13.9 million by the year 2030. In addition, it's also important to know that the total working age population at the moment is 18.3 million. This implies that 7.8 million young people are active in the labor force, which is something that we should be applauding. However, when you look at the key statistics, as shown in this table, in employment only, if we look at the employment status of youth aged between the ages of 18 to 30, in employment we have almost 4 million young people being employed. We have 1 million who are in school alone, they're not employed, they are in school, and we have 3 million who are in subsistence agriculture. But most important to note is the not in employment, education, or training, who are the NEET. And these are estimated to be a total of 2 million young people. So this is a source from the Uganda National Health Survey that was conducted in the year 2019-2020 and has recently been updated in the January 2022. So this is the reason why we are here, ladies and gentlemen, to understand who are these young people, where are they, could they be people that we know, how can we help them, how can we best plan for them. So as we delve deeper into understanding the youth situation in our country, it's important to note that the unemployment rate stands at 13%. And this is both for both male and female young people. But critical to this is that there is a 5% of youth who are not just NEET. That means they're not employed, they're not in education or any form of training, but they are actively not looking for work. This should concern each and every one of us seated here in this room. We could be those young people, or we know these young people. What is driving them not to look for work? Why aren't they being productive in the country's processes? So this 5% is a critical demographic indicator, and we need to pay attention to it, especially the policymakers, because in the long term, it could have detrimental consequences to the country's development. As we move on, after understanding the youth situational analysis or trying to dissect what it means, there are some key emerging issues that we don't need to forget. The representative from the National Planning Authority already gave us an overview of what National Development Plan 3 was and its priorities for young people. However, in NDP 3, as much as it was overemphasized that there were targeted programs for young people, there were no independent, deliberate, and structured interventions to address the issue of youth need. That means the young people who are not educated, not in education, and not receiving any formal training. So this was a gap in the National Development Plan 3. And as we move further into this presentation, you're going to be able to understand how were these interventions or these programs made. In addition, like we've mentioned, the issue of the 5.7% who are not even looking for work, but they are already within the NEET bracket. I think this is also something that we need to pay critical attention to as we make proposals to be included within the National Development Plan 4. In addition, a key emerging issue that many of us are aware of, ladies and gentlemen, is that there is an issue of skills inadequate employment for young people in our country, where oftentimes young people get into jobs or are offered opportunities for work, but the skills are misaligned to the context in which they are working. So this is a key issue that contributes to our unemployment rates. So let each and every one of us reflect on it and see how best we can discuss to support the young people in our country. As we move on, going further, we're going to take a closer look at NDP 3 to NDP 4. What really has changed? Has anything changed? We had the presentation from Ms. Ruth from the National Planning Authority. So like I had earlier mentioned, the National Development Plan 3, the period was 2020-21 to 2024/2025. So this National Development Plan 3 analyzed the context of youth really well and laid out several interventions to mainstream their participation and contribution to development. At the moment, the youth demographic composition was at 23.9%. And the government considered this an opportunity, if harnessed, like we've been discussing and has been shared by the previous speakers. However, if this 23.9% is not harnessed, it prevents development, or it presents an opportunity for young people not to be part of development processes in their country. So some of these interventions that were highlighted in NDP 3, to summarize, we had one, prioritization of skills and vocational development to address the unemployment. We had interventions trying to look at strengthening the agriculture extension system to boost young people's knowledge and skills and provide for them opportunity to be able to appreciate modern extension services. We also paid so much attention to increasing access to digital technologies, which young people are passionate about. I'm sure every one of us in this room can agree. And finally, we also had strengthening farmer organizations and cooperatives so that we get young people involved in things that are productive for them and can also earn them a living. So what you realize, these are just a few of the interventions that were laid out in the National Development Plan 3. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to let you know that several of the interventions that I've just talked about and many others that were in the National Development Plan 3 have remained unimplemented. As highlighted in the midterm report of 2023 that paid closer attention to the National Development Plan 3. So what does this mean for us? What does it mean for us, the young people? As we move further into the presentation, trying to understand this youth policy paper, I've sampled out or picked out 2 programs that we're going to talk about in depth that were some of the initiatives that government thought would amplify young people's participation in development processes, but also to be productive, to be employed. So the first is the famous Youth Livelihood Program, YLP. Just a brief background. In 2014, the government of Uganda launched a UGX 265 billion, that's approximately 100 million US dollars, for a 5-year youth livelihood program. So this was going to be the flagship intervention to address youth unemployment in the country. And on this note, I would really like to appreciate and applaud the government for their thoughtfulness and for their deliberation in trying to address the issue of youth unemployment in Uganda. It's really commendable. However, the Youth Livelihood Program ended in 2017 with no qualitative impact evaluation to assess whether this program and the funding that had been availed to young people was actually effective and met the overall goal of addressing youth unemployment in Uganda. Let's take a moment to reflect about that. In addition, unfortunately, when the Youth Livelihood Program closed, there was neither a phase 2 or any other targeted program that was executed in this NDP 3 period to address young people's socioeconomic challenges. Instead, the government made propositions to seize funding so that we can create room for the parish development model that we are all aware of. In addition, there was a revolving fund for the Youth Livelihood Program because young people were availed resources that they would pay back with time. However, it's important to know that only 17 billion was recovered from the young people, which also, makes us feel that young people are passionate. We are not against the government's development processes. Young people took on this initiative passionately and were able to return approximately 17 billion. That is just 4%. That begs the question, what happened to the remaining 86% of the Youth Livelihood Program funds? At the moment, many of us young people, including some of us who could be in this room, are unaware that the Youth Livelihood Program could be running because it has been reinstated by the government. However, are young people aware that they are free to go and access these funds? Are they aware? This is also a critical issue that we need to think about. Moving on from the Youth Livelihood Program, let's delve into the parish development model that we all know and are passionate about. The overall goal of the parish development model was to transition 39% of households from subsistence into the money economy, using the parishes as the epicenter of development. Uniquely, The parish development model also had a unique concept where it looked so much at having inclusion, participation, representation of different categories of people, young people, women, young people living with disability, etc. So the current PDM guidelines state that they would commit a 30% quota for young people. Unfortunately, this has not been implemented. This has not been implemented. The parish development model, unique to each and every one of us, was the flagship program for the National Development Plan 3, and will most likely remain so in the National Development Plan 4. However, there have been so many structural limitations that have inhibited this program from being as successful as we had envisioned it at the start. These barriers limit its inclusion, limits its ability to have participation of diverse groups of people, especially the young people in our country. And these challenges are an opportunity to be addressed in the National Development Plan 4, so that we can at least receive or appreciate its effectiveness and responsiveness to young people's issues and priorities. Some of the gaps that were in the parish development model are, firstly, the parish development model assumed that all targeted Ugandans were in the subsistence economy. However, I had presented earlier, the employment status of young people ages 18 to 30, we only have 3 million who are in subsistence agriculture. What about the 2 million who are not in employment, education, and training? So this is one of the major loopholes of the parish development model. The second is that the parish development model was built on the idea that all households produce food and engage in the market, implying that those without land and are not in the production chain would not be catered for. But let us ask ourselves a question: how many young people own land? How many young people produce food and engage in the market and are part of the production chain? Thirdly, the parish development model was to incorporate an affirmative element in its design and execution, which means every allocation of funding would go by a case-by-case parish. Who needs more? However, the government committed to allocate Ugandan shillings 100 million annually to every parish, irrespective of their demographic characteristics and development indicators. Some parishes are way better off than others, so the principle of affirmative action may not be realized if every parish gets a standard set or a concrete figure, an absolute figure of UGX 100 million annually to support their young people. Finally, it had been anticipated that the parish development model would thrive on data, analysis, monitoring and evaluation results to drive any decision or action for the young people. But will this be possible without parish-specific information? Will it be possible to realize any change in the different parishes where the program will be implemented if the government does not have the baseline information on what are these people growing, what are they most interested in? So these are some of the gaps of the parish development model. And we are paying so much attention to it because it will most likely be part of the National Development Plan 4 as one of the programs that the government will hope to use to empower the youth in this country. Proposed interventions for youth in the National Development Plan 4. So, ladies and gentlemen, since the focus of this dialogue was to situate and understand the issue of youth not in employment, education, and training, the very first intervention is having a strategic, targeted, or focused youth livelihood program that will be considered under the NDP IV to respond to young people's unique social and economic challenges. I am pleased, after listening in from the representative from the National Planning Authority, she stated that in the NDP IV, they are committed to having a youth livelihood program for young people. Our plea is that whatever intervention that we are going to have in the National Development Plan for is inclusive of all categories of young people, specifically focusing on those who are not in employment, education, or receiving any formal training. And this is our first proposed intervention. Secondly, the parish development model had stated that there would be a 30% quota for young people. Can this be actualized? Can we have this being implemented in the various parishes throughout the country? This funding should not only support youth in subsistence farming or agriculture, but rather empower these young people who are not in employment, education, and training to also be part of productive initiatives within the country. This is a critical point that we need to focus on. The National Development Plan 3 as part, National Development Plan 4 as part of our proposed interventions should also propose programs that position the country's tax and investment regime to incentivize young people, both in the formal and informal sectors. Proposed intervention number 4. The National Development Plan 4 should provide a mechanism to coordinate national level efforts to reduce the number of youth need. Evidence around reducing youth need points to having dedicated national leadership to monitor the NEET agenda. At the moment, we do not know who these young people are, where they reside, what they are passionate about, or what some of their aspirations are. But we hope that in the National Development Plan 4, there should be a mechanism that tries to understand where these young people are, tries to reduce their numbers from 2 million, which is projected to increase to 2.5 million. Just as the representative from the National Planning Authority had already stated, these numbers are more likely to grow if there is no deliberate, targeted intervention to bring these numbers down. Finally, we hope and propose that the Uganda Bureau of Statistics should aid the government through baseline surveys to situate youth need and enable appropriate targeting and mobilization in development initiatives. If there's any study that has been done around understanding young people who are not in employment, education, and training, we would like to have these statistics and this information popularized so that we can empower them to be able to reduce their numbers and design interventions that are specifically targeted to help them transition into more productive activities. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was Ms. Nakato Rehema Sesimba, a young, passionate public health specialist, trainer and writer with 5 years of experience, and you can hear what she had to articulate. Can we clap for the lady once again? She has poured a floodlight on a number of things. including the issue of poverty, the issue of YLP. Is YLP, did it sum up its business in 2017, or is it there? PDM, she didn't talk about Youth Venture Capital Fund. She didn't talk about green jobs. She didn't talk about Emyoga. She didn't talk about NADS. She didn't talk about Operation Wealth Creation. And she didn't talk about Juakari. But she decided to focus that to her, those were the most important interventions that she thought would lead the young people out of poverty. On PDM, she is in for 30% exclusively for the young people. And therefore, we need to have a discussion. We need to have a panel to interrogate what has been said. But she also in for multi-sectoral approach, that we need everybody on board. Dealing with issues of poverty is not an easy thing. Dealing with issues of unemployment or underemployment is not an easy thing. And so we need everybody, the cultural, religious, and even those who don't believe in anybody. We need everybody on board. ILO says that poverty anywhere is a threat to prosperity everywhere. And I think it's the current Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, who said that issues of poverty in Africa are in such a way that those who are poor don't sleep because they are hungry, and those who are rich don't sleep because the poor are awake. So poverty affects everybody. You don't say like Samuel Chitamirike, a planner at Mackay University, would say that with me I have a very high perimeter wall. But even if your perimeter is as high as Muvara's perimeter wall, if people are talking outside your fence throughout the night, you will not catch sleep. You will not know what they are planning to do with you. So I think it's important for us to focus on these issues together. The former Prime Minister of Uganda, the late Professor Apollon Sibabi, said the problem with Africa is that we train today what was needed yesterday. The planner from Makerere, Mr. Chitamirike, will tell us whether that is true or not. But people have said that we train a lot of people who would not match the demands of the job market. So why are we training at all? The other day I was reading an article by a professor in Uganda. He said that he was asking, are higher institutions of learning ready for the products of the reformed secondary education? You know, we have reformed the lower secondary education curriculum. We have not reformed at the top. So what is going to happen? And then somebody will ask, unfortunately Judith has left, but Dr. Hamis is here. Are we planning? And if we are planning rightly? Or is there a problem? I would therefore like to invite the following. Let me start with my good friend, Dr. Hamis Mugendawala. Dr. Hamis Mugendawala is the head of policy, research, and innovation at the National Planning Authority. He's also the author of the NEET report. And I've had figures here contrary to what I knew. I knew that the people in NEET, and I want Rehama to listen, I knew that the people in NEET, according to his report, they are 41%. That translates to 4.2. And projected to grow to 5.8 in financial year 30-31. But I'm now hearing 2 million. Are we trying to downgrade the profile of the problem? I don't know. But let's clap for Dr. Hamis, who will clarify on these issues. I also want to invite Nanyonyo Linet, the vice chairperson of the multi-party youth platform, youth from the Triple P. You see, the issues we are talking about, they have no color, they have no party. If poverty comes, it affects the maroon color, it affects the yellow color, it affects the green color, it affects everybody. So we need to talk about these issues. I want also to invite, some of my panelists are not yet here. When they join us, I'll introduce them. But let me also invite Ms. Topista Chiza, who currently serves as Programs Manager and Technical Lead on Local Governance and Youth Engagement at African Youth Development Link, where she advises on youth-specific program designs and other national youth initiatives. Topista Chiza has a decade of experience in designing, implementing, and delivering programs focused on policy analysis, democracy, human rights, gender literacy, and leadership development, among so many things. She has a full page of her CV, but let me keep it at that. Can we clap for the team that is now here with me? And they will be introducing themselves. And my first question as you introduce yourself is, what are your impressions about what has been presented? And I'll be following up that question with other questions. Can I start with the lady in yellow? Since people in yellow are in charge of the country. Yes, let me start with you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, and thank you so much, Open Space Center, for organizing this dialogue. And a very good morning to everyone. Like you heard, I am called Topista Chiza, and I work with youth. The profile was long, but I work with young people. Yes, so looking at what we had from the National Planning Authority and what Rehema did present for us, the statistics that we have is that National Planning Authority puts the needs at 41%, but then the Ministry of Gender actually challenged that and said that they are at 24%. So I think we will have to have a harmonization, because we have two different statistics from these two different entities. But whether 24% or 41%, we feel that this is a very, very big challenge for this country, and it is something that we really need to focus on and have discussion and interventions that are geared towards reducing this statistic. So based on what has been presented is that in the first place, we have a challenge in this country. The challenge that we have is that you have the majority of the people that make up the population of the country, but they are the least engaged when it comes to planning for them. So most of the time, young people, even children and youth, are not widely consulted even when it comes to programs that are really going to target them. Previously, when they were developing the National Development Plan 3, I remember UNFPA supported consultative engagements for youth organizations and some few youth. So for youth organizations, they had a consultation that was held, but then UNFPA could only support a few young people selected from regions to come and give an input. I remember being part of that discussion, but I really felt bad that it's only a few of us that could be consulted for such a national planning framework. I felt that we needed to be consulted more, we needed to have more young people on board. But going forward is that for NDP IV, there are steps that are being taken by both the National Planning Authority and youth civil society organizations, and I am sure that the Ministry of Gender, now that they have a coordination framework in place, that more young people will be consulted and their input will be included in the planning framework for this country. That is one. Then secondly, is that if you look at planning, national
Chiza,
planning.
when you say more, what do you mean by more? Because we are saying we have 21.3% of the population of Uganda is constituted by the youth. You want all the 21.3 to be consulted? I was thinking that youth have structures. They have the National Youth Council, we have the WUNSA, we have members of parliament, and we thought that under democratic, representation, then that will be adequate. What do you propose? National Planning Authority is here so that they know what the young people need to hear.
Okay, so yeah, I know that youth have structures, but if you consult from the young people and even the people that are present here, you'll hardly hear whether these leaders reach out to them. They rarely reach out to them. So the feedback mechanism or the mechanism through which our leaders are able to reach out and really listen to us so that our input is included is really limited. So going forward, what I would propose is that why not work with also youth organizations? We know we have youth organizations and CBOs that are spread across the country. And the beauty is that the Ministry of Gender has a coordination mechanism. So if we are able to use that coordination mechanism, then we are able to get input from young people across the country. And the other thing is that youth are not homogeneous. Yeah. If you look at the report that was done by NPA, most of the needs are not in Kampala. They are not in Central. They are spread across the districts and regions, and they are telling you most of them are in the rural areas. But what mechanisms do we have to reach out to the young people who are in the rural communities? Because those are the ones that need these interventions the most. So that is the kind of framework that we need to have if we are to consult and if we are to engage young people. Then the other thing that I could speak to is that National Planning Authority does well in terms of planning and getting us a plan. But now, for these plans to be actualized, budgeting is very critical. So now when we look at our budget and how we have been budgeting for the past few years, is that most of our budget is now financing the debt. I'm sure that most of us know that most of our budget is going to debt financing. So the little budget that we have is the one that is put to priorities that are geared towards supporting the population, including the young people. So there is no way we can actualize what is included in the development plan if we are not budgeting right, or we don't have intentional kind of like interventions that are going to help this country to try and reduce on the debt burden that we have and the inflation that we face as a country. And it becomes dangerous that if you look at what happens across the budget process is open for every Ugandan to make a contribution. But for the people that are not that engaged in this process are still the young people. So young people are not participating as much as they should. So there is a likelihood that their priorities might not easily be catered for in the national budget. If you look at the budget, the current budget, is that most of the affected areas were for young people. There were cuts that were made to the programs, including the one that Rehema talked about, the Youth Livelihood Fund. Those programs suffered a cut of around 80%. So there was hardly very little that was left for those programs to be supporting young people. I think the little that was left was supposed to cater for administrative costs and the other costs, but there wasn't enough money that would go to the young people.
Do you have hope that with the flow of oil starting next year, 2026, the budget deficit will be dealt with, and therefore we should have a better planning platform?
Okay, so thank you so much. So talking about oil and gas, I feel that oil and gas is one of the areas that is going to create opportunities for young people. When the oil companies were coming in, they made what is called a manpower survey to look at, the opportunities that are going to be available and the nature of skills that they would need to fit into those. And I think that report was shared by government, though I'm not sure how much of it has been implemented. I know that government put in place certain strategies of skilling, reskilling, because these oil companies need a lot of plumbers, they need a lot of welders, but according to what their research have found is that most of the welders, most of the young people that we have as plumbers could not qualify. So they needed to be reskilled for a period of at least 1 to 2 years so that they meet international standards and that they are able to be certified to work in the oil and gas company. So I think we need to do an audit and see where we are at. Or otherwise, even when we have the oil and gas, it might not really help us. We might have youth and young people from other countries that are ready coming in to take over the jobs that should have helped the young people of this country. As I quickly try to still finalize, still into the budget, I think the list of the budget goes to local governments, and this is where these young people that we are talking about are. Most of our budget is still centralized here, and local governments receive very little of this money. One of the key programs in the current National Development Plan that is aimed at transforming young people's mindset is community mobilization and mindset change. But it is a program that receives the least of our budget. So you look at people like community development officers that do reach out to young people, that give out information, that do sensitization about government programs, having no budget to run their office. They are earning a salary, but they don't have enough resources to reach out to the young people to sensitize them about government programs like Emyoga and the other programs that we are talked about. So that is a challenge, that you have young people in communities that are not aware of these government programs and how they can actively benefit from them.
Having the parliament to elect the president and not everybody. And I want to tap into your thinking about representative democracy. But also, I would like you to interrogate further issues to do with the education status of the young people in this country. Let me go to Lynette. Lynette, what is your take about what we are discussing? You have heard from Nakato, you have heard from National Planning Authority, you have heard from the British High Commission. What's your take?
Thank you very much. My name is Nanyonjo Lynette. I am the Vice Chairperson of the Multi-Party Youth Platform. But also, I'm an active young person in politics. Well, my take is, with a look of things, I think one of the things that disturbs us as Uganda is to have accurate data on issues that concern young people. And if we are going to tackle the issues of young people, we should have accurate data, because you realize all the people that have presented here have different numbers when it comes to young people that are not employed, young people that are not budgeted for. So for me, I think one of the provisions that we should look at as a country is to have an extensive system that provides accurate data when it comes to young people. This will help us solve some of the issues of planning. And I hope that since we are coming to a year that we're going to have the population census, I hope that one of the key things we look at when we are having the census is having the accurate numbers of young people. Have the accurate numbers of young people, their state of livelihood. This will help us when we are planning for them. Secondly, I want to pick some of what Nakato has presented, saying that the unemployment rate is at 13% and 5.7%. Those are not actively engaged in active work, and they're not even trying. When you look at these statements, they are worrying. These are young people that have nothing to lose. And when we have a percentage of up to 5.7 of young people with nothing to lose that are actively not engaged, this is a danger to also the democracy of the country. these are young people that will easily want to burn a road because they feel frustrated and they don't know what to do about themselves. So for me, I think one of the things that we should look at going ahead is to have a legal framework that supports and enforces youth mainstream policies, including laws and regulations, including planning and implementation. Because sometimes we have very good programs that are failed because we do not effectively have proper planning for these young people. They are not actively infused in the planning of these programs. Then the program happens and young people do not know what to do. That's what happened with youth livelihood. Young people thought the money was for them to eat. So when we plan with the young people, they know the benefits of the program. They want to understand and know how best to work in these programs. So me, I think, let us have legal frameworks that infuse these young people in these programs, in the planning and the implementation that will in return effectively give us the results that we want to achieve in such programs. Secondly, I also want us to have intersectional collaborations where we have information links but also solution links, that Ministry of Gender will not have a problem discussing with UNDP, will not have a problem with discussing with Parliament before we come up with solutions or we come up with programs. Let us collaborate with the CBOs, civil society, and the young people, because when we talk about young people that are under need, these are young people that you will not even, when you went to a village, you will not easily access. Because probably these are young people that do not think such engagements are too big for them or too broad for them. So how do we get these young people on board so we can effectively plan for them? I suggest the intersectional collaborations, where we know that CBOs that are working with Umuntu wa Wansi can easily come up and say, if we are doing PDM, can we have some of the qualifications to get this money lessened? Because some of the young people cannot afford all of these qualifications.
One of the leaders said, I think we must all stop politicizing development programs. What do you have to say about politicization of programs? Because what you are saying about some of the programs that are designed and somebody says, we thought it was money given to us to eat. Don't you think sometimes that's just being subversive? Do you think people don't have information that this money, they have borrowed it, and somebody says, I thought it was for eating?
I can tell you, effectively, you will be shocked, but at the kind of information young people have. I was in Katwe, I think 2 months back, and we were discussing about the paid DM. And the young people actively refused to go to register because the chairperson of the village that was given the mantle to have conversations about PDM was spreading wrong information about it. He was saying this is an NRM project, and he was registering NRM people to come and collect money for PDM. Chances are a young person that is passionate about probably the opposition will not want to engage in such matter. So chances are even the ones that will engage will have a certain sense of entitlement while receiving this money. We just want to take it for granted that we have put out information and people know. People have subdued information on ground, and it's very shocking that we often say that it's the young people that are in the villages that do not understand things, even young people in Kampala, because of the politicizing that you've said. Information is deluded to suit the needs of people that are in power, which now in return affects how young people participate in these programs.
Is it also possible that people can simply refuse to understand? When I say, no, I will refuse to understand, I know the correct thing, but I refuse to understand. Because when me and Mugendawara were growing up, there was only one radio station and one TV station, which would work just for hours. At midnight, they will say, they will sing the national anthem, put the, and it goes off. Even before lunch, they will say, Katuwumule muko, ebyuma bigenze for service. But now, I have it on impeccable evidence. We have 325 radio stations. We have 80 plus TV stations. And then we have social media. What is that makes it so difficult for us to use all these media stations to get the correct information?
One of the things, I think I'll use a quote that a friend of mine usually uses, that enkulakulana mulimu abagifunamu, mulimu abagifunamu, n'abatagifunamu. N'abagiyitamu obuyisi. With the development of AI, information of all of these radio stations, also comes delusion of the information or misinformation. That is why you have seen a lot of radio stations are at UCC now for saying wrong things. That is why Parliament is trying to fidget with the cyber law. Why is that? Because with a lot of information put there, there is also a lot of lies put there. Now, it takes an intense mind to actually go through this information, scrutinize the information, and come out with the perfect information or the right information. There is always a problem when there is a lot of sources of information. Now, this in return affects the idea that we want to put out. Because if I am a TV presenter and I don't know about PDM, I will give a simple example. When we had NAM here, if you saw the information people were giving when they were asked as simple as, do you know NAM? Even people, councillors, people that you think know this information, they actually don't. And now, TV stations are privatized. For them, their main goal is to earn the bread. So as long as I get my ratings, give wrong information, and let us proceed.
Thank you, Lynette. I'll be coming back to you to ask whether anybody has a right not to know in the 21st century. But that's, you put it aside, I'll be coming back to you. Mr. Jacob Eyeru, you can see there is a vacant seat, and I think your guest is reserved for you. Could you kindly take your seat and stop disturbing my officer? I want to welcome Chairman Jacobo Eyeru to this panel. He's part of the panel, and please kindly take your seat. As I go to Dr. Okay, clap if you mean to. Yes, yes. This is your chairman. Yes, once upon a time I was like him. I was also young and energetic. And people would clap for me when I come in. When I came in here, nobody clapped. But clap for the chairman, please. Thank you. Now, Dr. Hamis, you have so far followed the discussion. You have listened to the presentations. You have heard the cry of the young people. What's your take?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. The paper, in a nutshell, I would say, is mainly looking at creating opportunities for young people. And I think that is the main objective of everyone who is working with young people world over. It's all about opportunity. Although we use various ways of looking at this, but the paper is just nothing else but looking at how do we increase opportunity for young people. And in this case, the paper looks so much on how do we get a young person doing something that they can sell and then earn. That's what the paper is looking at. And the paper is mainly saying that there are factors of production that young people need to have access to in order to have something that they can sell and earn money. And it delves so much on one of the factors, which is the knowledge or the skill. Of course, the paper left out something about values, because we talk about knowledge, skills, and values. So the paper was mainly delving on scaling, and it left out a very critical component now in this country called values. In this country, I don't know, but the issue of values is costing us a lot in terms of creating opportunities. Personally, I have taken time to talk to people who have money. And I have discovered that a lot of people are just keeping money either in insurance companies or banks, and a few of them are willing to invest and create jobs for young people for many reasons. But one of them is that, whom will I employ in my business and do things right? Most of the people you speak to, they say, I employed people and all they did was to steal everything until I went to ground zero. I have tried as well to create enterprises, and it's the same story. And I'm coming to a conclusion to think that maybe Ugandans can't do things right. Whoever you put in an office, whoever you put in a business, whoever you put in places, but these things, we don't talk about them. There are so many people who would wish to put a lot of money in investments, but they've tried, and because our population now has no values, all that we look at is to rob whatever we've. So whenever we talk about the issue of creating skills as a factor of production, we need to always talk about values as well. The skilling model that we are trying to analyze as National Planning Authority, that is, in our view, working, is the model where you skill a young person, you equip the young person, and enterprise the young person. It is the model that we have been trying to study that is really working. The traditional model of skilling has failed, where you skill a young person and leave them on their own. You have not done much, because still they will come back on the street, even with the skill that they have. Even if you've given them vocational skills, you speak to them and they will say, if I'm a carpenter, I need a toolbox. If I learned design, I need a sewing machine. Some of these things look small, but they have remained barriers for young people to transition from wherever they are into employment. And so, as National Planning Authority, this time we are saying, you know, the concept of skilling has been ending in the middle. Can we try to go beyond just providing skills, such that you equip this young person? After equipping them, you help them to enterprise them. Because the assumption we've been taking is that when you skill someone and they start producing things, then the loop has been completed. But then young people may not have the access to market opportunities. They may not have access to wherever to sell whatever they are making. And so you have to work with them, and to us, that is what is working. Now, the paper talks about the issue of capital, that is financing, and it talks about a plethora of attempts.
Doctor, before you go to the issue of capital, when you say the skilling model you are in for is skill, equip, and support.
And enterprise.
And support and enterprise. And Minister of Gender is saying that that's not enough. That can we also integrate sexual and reproductive health of the young people? But also on top of that, integrate the soft skills. That just teaching me the skilling, I learn how to make a bed for Honorable here, a very good bed. He comes, he purchases, and that's it. Can we go a mile further? In every intervention that is targeting the young people, can we put on sexual reproductive health and family planning? You have heard it here on Good Source, that we have 24% teenage pregnancy. So if a young man is in business and he starts having about 6 children when he's below 30, what does that mean?
Thank you, Commissioner. I had left sexual reproductive health out of my talk because there are dedicated programs for that, in my view. But if they can be included into skilling programs, I don't see any harm with that. I think there are so many sexual reproductive health programs in this country, and I've visited a number of healthy institutions, and they've really tried to put youth-friendly health services. The only challenge is that access in some instances becomes a critical challenge. What was the other that you spoke to? Besides the sexual reproductive health? The soft skills. I think we've gotten it wrong. When someone says skilling young people, they are not only talking about hard skills. No, in my view, skills are either hard or soft. And if someone is emphasizing just one of them, then they are not completing the loop. Soft skills currently are becoming a critical component in life. In fact, some people say that where we are going, hard skills will matter less. It will be people who can speak, people who can convince others to buy what they are making that will make it. People who will be creative at thinking to solve problems will be the people who will be managing, and all these are soft skills. So that does not need to be overemphasized. Now, Commissioner, as I conclude, I think there is something that the paper glossed over. Maybe it didn't pay attention to it. When I led the research on youth who are neither in employment nor education or training, what we discovered is that the biggest predisposing factor of young people to neatism is leaving school early. There are so many young people still who are leaving school early, at primary, at secondary, without completing the required threshold of qualification. And this is happening in the wake of UPE and USE. Now, when you look at the designs of our basic education, there are still barriers, even when you have UPE and USE. And some of these barriers are situated at home, some at the school, others in the communities. You find that the education system itself has barriers inbuilt. For example, if you enroll me, and government policy now is that you should stay in school for 11 years at least. That is 7 years plus 4. And then when I finish P7, you tell me you have failed, you have not raised these aggregates, so you can't proceed. Now, that becomes a it's a contradiction of policy. That is why in most of the countries where basic education is free, you remove the barrier in between, and in most of those countries, the first examination young people sit for is a S4 or its equivalent, such that you let a seamless flow of a young person who has enrolled in P1 to complete at least 11 years in school. Now, people here fear so much that if you remove PLE, then you're going to compromise quality. And the question I've been asking that, okay, we have PLE, has it improved the quality? They say no. So if having it doesn't, but it even harms the situation more, does it make more sense to have it? Now, what we are saying is, can we create a situation where young people can stay in school for at least 11 years at the minimum, by breaking the barriers that pull them or push them out of school? And one of them, especially for the girls, is teenage pregnancy because of our culture and poverty.
Thank you, Dr. Hamisi. Keep it there, because I would like you to later comment. I'm happy that the Honorable Engineer Barmwezo of Nakawa East is here with us, and this also will concern him, that, oh, you can wave to the people. Please kindly wave to the people. Politicians have to wave to the people. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. The issue of menstrual hygiene management has been cited as one of the causes of children dropping out of school or posting wrong grades. And so we need to interrogate it further. There have been arguments. Can we make some of these commodities that girls need tax-free? And there's been a lot of debate, and we are not getting to a solution. But I know for sure that in this country, we produce about 1.6 million children a year. And I started by telling you that you people, you are very good at manufacturing human beings. The issue is whether you are ready to look after the human beings. But it is so surprising, because you're imagining that after 6 years, these children will start P1 and they will go all the way to P7. It's surprising, Honorable, that only 800,000 children sit PLE. 800 plus or less. Now, when you go to UCE, you have a miserable 300 plus or minus. By the time you reach A level, and I'm not surprised that sometimes papers of members of parliament are doubted, apart from yours, that they doubt them. When you go to A level, a miserable 100 plus or minus is sitting A level. And part of the reason is some of the things that Dr. Amis, you have articulated. And I'll be getting back to you on that together with Honorable to tell us what's the way forward. Because at one point in time, you promised that you will be giving pads free of charge. Of course, I also said that pads alone are not adequate, because menstrual hygiene management requires more just than the pads. But people will say the pads will be free. But we know that you need water, you need a place where to clean from, you need this and the other. Hamis, as you switch off your mic, I want to go to Chairman Jacobo Eyeru, Chairman of the Youth of Uganda. What challenges are young people finding in occupying some political space as a source of livelihood? Well, people can argue that parliament is about service, it's not a source of livelihood. That one we can interrogate. But I can also say that it's both. It's very lucrative to be in parliament. They earn handsomely. And you have been following the debate about what is happening. And the Honorable will confirm later. That's one. Two, what is the space of the creative industry in providing employment for the young people? What are we doing? What are we not doing? And what must we do?
Thank you, sir. First of all, allow me present my apologies. Ever since they appointed the new minister until they bring the handover ceremony, I am in trouble. The old minister has insisted that she's no longer in the docket, so she's not doing any other responsibility of the docket. The new minister says, I wish it handed over to me. So the cabinet minister has been using me now to fill in the need. The whole morning I've been running around. I have a meeting at midday. In fact, when I walked in, I came to stop by on my way to another meeting to request that I come back and close this one towards 1. Then they invited me to the panel. So I am going to give this intervention. You will excuse me, I will leave, but I will come back towards 1 because the other meeting will end before 1. I want you to accept that. My apologies, I can't do anything about it. It is just the way Uganda is in these 4 days. So the question is very clear. I think, Honorable, I welcome you. Maybe before I answer the question, I just need to tell Honorable to head a pass. You see, I am in the NRM. There are many young people in this room who are in different political parties. See, my brother Ogweta is from Gulu. Until recently, he was in FDC. I know there are some of NUP, like yourself, Honorable, and many others. You help this country, and the NUP gets orderly. Because NUP gets orderly. I might be in the NRM, but a lot of the progress in the country comes through a sensible opposition. Being able to check government, to be able to show that they can organize and give alternatives. So when we see that the opposition is dissipating, some of us who are young and have been groomed in the universities through political vibrance, we know what the country is losing. Some people might be happy, but for us, we are not happy. If in the next election, NUP gets only 15 MPs, FDC 2, but Parliament is 600 people and NRM has 590, it is not good for the country. It might be a good thing for me in NRM, but it's not good for the country in terms of progress. So help us. I've seen you are a bit sensible. Every time you speak, you are very sensible. So help guide the party. And I love that the Katikiro also help to guide you, even if it is wrong for the Katikiro to get involved partisanly, but help us. So on to the question. I think that there are 2 things that are very important. Number 1, government has given the creative industry the best possible minister, Sabavuru Balam. So in terms of what government can do with the creative industry, if we don't do it in this 1.5 years, it cannot be done. Because this time they have brought one of them to be the minister for youth and children affairs. This has been an ongoing conversation. And many people have said, oh, Balam does not have experience and so on. And I agree. But in the creative sector, everybody is happy. And he started well by going to his swearing in. Others took their parents, took their maybe husbands and children. Balam brought the creative industry into State House for the very first time when swearing in as Minister of Youth. He came with Juliana. He came with the fellow of NUP who was saying things about helping people who are in prison, which I thought was a very good gesture, and he came with Bebe Cool. That is the beginning, that political leadership listens to the actual players, not middlemen. That has been a problem with the creative sector, that a minister is too honorable to be speaking to a ghetto artist or have a forum for a ghetto artist. Now, when the ghetto artist, all he needs is a studio that maybe government employs 5-6 producers and equips the studio. Even if you equipped 1 studio per sub-region that can produce videos at the quality, because it's a one-off, at the quality that that Davido produces, that Bobby Wine produces, that Bebe Cool produces, but they are paying at a very subsidized fee. If the cost of video production is 300,000 per video, but the quality is Nessim, production is Nessim, you know, me I'm a youth leader, so I know a lot of these people. The quality of production is Nessim, the video quality is Sasha Vibes, but it is 300,000. That's the only way Gulu young people can be able to compete and their videos are enjoyable. But if a young person in Gulu, to be able to come through the creative industry, they need to look for 3 million to just produce the song with Nessim. They are not going to be able to compete. So their music will be a district, local-based music. We are talking about being dominated, but we are not helping them. So for me, that's the first thing. The government, especially this one-off heavy capital costs, government can invest in that. The second most important thing is that government needs to look towards, in my opinion, we need to look towards enabling laws and environment. For example, the other day I saw a debate about what time drinking alcohol should stop in Parliament. Who drinks alcohol? We can discuss where the alcohol is drunk from, but if we are a secular country, in other words, there is no specific religion that takes the whole country, drinking alcohol is actually what drives the creative industry. If they say this place has band, then they can sell their alcohol. If it has no band and the neighbor has band, he will see that they even begin hiring your parking so that they use the other place. So some of these enabling policy environments need to be studied well so that the ideas of governance that affect the creative industry are thought with the creative industry, are developed with the creative industry. Then we can be able to push forward. Now, as a youth leader, in terms of the gaps that I see, I think the first and most important gap is financing. And I hope that Balaam is going to be clear about it. Let me give you an example. You see, commissioner here, the youth officer is here, but if you ask them tomorrow to be in Gulu to talk to the creatives, they don't have fuel. And they can't find it. Unless maybe I find some money or Open Space says we shall give you fuel to talk to the creatives. You find that the policy wing of government and the people that can influence or determine government policy in terms of aiding cannot actually do the work because there is no money. They are not financed. So you find them now at the mercy of who has an idea but also has the money for their idea. If you want them to be involved in sexual reproductive health services, to see if hospitals are giving youth corners, you need to first give them money to go and see it or convene. That's a very big problem. And government is not prioritizing that kind of arrangement because government is insisting, the PSST, and I've told him, but one day, this youth day, I'm going to tell him on the microphone. Government cannot invest in only production because production is not what develops people most. Human capital development, if you give someone capacity, what we're talking about, skilling, we're talking about talents, we are talking about enabling environment, you may not need to tell them what to produce. Nobody told young people that they need to start from leaving their skirts to go into jeans, leaving the jeans into ripped jeans, leaving ripped jeans into leggings. Now I'm hearing patras. But the people who bring those things do not hold a consultative meeting. It's a market dynamic that they can see that this is a trend that's coming, and then they just proceed. Nobody taught people these live videos. There are so many. I could not believe one day, I don't like TikTok, but one day I joined one live on TikTok, and I realized that there are 30,000 Ugandans listening to a fellow with zero research. Just rumor after creation, after creativity, just saying, and some weird soundtrack in the background. Bagenda musibagano gendeta gocha. Njagala muera o muere. I want to see, we are 20,000, can we have 30,000? And the guy, he knows that when he hits 30,000, TikTok pays him about $1,000.
So nobody taught them that that is production and wealth creation. That's a service delivery President Museveni talks about. So government needs to invest in these spaces where young people can be creative. And those spaces are in either innovation hubs for the tech people. Let those young people have funding for their credit units on hosting their apps, or it is in the creatives. That is my final statement.
Can you specifically comment on the issue of what some have termed as commercialization of politics? If a young person wanted to go and compete with the Honorable here, you have to kufungiza, you must have about 500 million plus. The young people are saying that that's what is stopping them from joining the political space. Yet, as I said, the political space can also be a source of income. If you stand your LC5 chair, if you stand your member of parliament, you are assured of income. What's your view about commercialization of politics?
Hello? Okay. So, politics. I need to be very honest, young people. Politics is a game of strategy. And young people must learn strategy. Strategy differs from where you are running. For example, if you want to enter parliament and you are running for Kampala Woman MP, you must be willing to know that if you are running on the FDC ticket, you will not win. If you insist that you will win, then you need to answer the question of what are you going to do differently that Stella Nyanzi did not do. That's the reality of politics. I was born, I think Naguru is in Nakawa West. Yes. I was born in Nakawa West, where Joel Senyonyi is MP. I grew up in Nakawa West, studied a bit in Nakawa East in Luzira. I have a lot of hobbies. If I decided to run in any of the Nakawas, I cannot get less than 1,000 volunteer mobilizers. But there's another question. Are you going to win as an NRM candidate? If your intention is to win, the answer might be no right now. But there are other people whose interests may not be to win. Their interest is to show that I am the NRM flag bearer so that I meet the president. If I am in that category, I can hurry and say, Honorable Balimweza tugamba chi. We are tired. Noop is useless. But when people look at you, they say, my brother, singo yingira Noop. But for you, you know that no, that's not my intention. Or I am a loyalist to the party. Politics has many faces. The one thing that does not leave politics, young people want to tell you, it is money. Our politics has been spoiled as a country to the extent that even the opposition party, it comes, people want to receive, they are very happy to see Bobby Wine, but the first borders that live with him, when he has just arrived in the district, before the crowd comes, have to first take fuel. And the SG comes ahead of time to give them fuel. If he doesn't give them fuel, they will not be there. And then there will be no mobilization of the further masses because of the effect of that number. Unfortunately, that's the politics. But young people in Uganda have an opportunity. One, the National Youth Council does not need that much money. If you're running for chairperson, you need to go around the whole country. So you need that much money. But it is not as much as running against Honorable Balimwezu. He will host a meeting of 1,000 people, and he will say, naye muva wala mwetaga transport. Then he gives everyone 30,000. 1,000 people times 30,000, 30 million. One meeting. Now you also want to call a meeting of 1,000 people. The same people, the same voters.
they also need water. They'll say, we have you, but we have used borders to come here. Are you saying we should invest in your election? So if you do not want to compete with him and lose because of money, then you can't congregate them like that. You now go to their homes, because for you say, no, Charlie, I'm still a youth, I can walk to every home. And people say, hey, he reached me. So he said, the other one just bought us, this one reached us. That's the difference that can happen. Politics is about strategy, but the money will never leave the politics. I want to assure you.
Thank you
money
very much.
does not leave politics.
Money and politics are one in the same, and even in the US, you must mobilize the money. So politics may not be for the poor.
I'm going to request that I take leave now. They have been calling me that
you are hereby cleared. Take leave, sir, and thank you so much. I'm now opening up this discussion to everybody. If you have an idea to share, because we want to see what do we take forward to NDP IV. I want to get the audience, then I'll be coming back this way for the final shots, and we shall close. Honorable Balimwezo, there is no way you are here and you can't talk to the people. Can you take the mic to Honorable?
Thank you so much. I do appreciate Commissioner for giving me this opportunity. My name is Balimwezo Ronald Isuga. I'm an engineer and formerly a lecturer at Chambogo University. I am the Shadow Minister for Kampala, and I am a Member of Parliament representing the Nakawa East constituency in the Parliament of Uganda. I want to thank the organizers. Yesterday, I was presenting my alternative policy statement, and in one of the meetings they held, we talked about NEET, and I tried to feed in, and everyone looked at me as if I was so knowledgeable. But this is information that I got from one of the meetings that I was invited in. Therefore, I want to appreciate the organizers. You have done me good when you brought out the issue of the number of babies that we produce in Uganda. But at one time in Parliament, we are given a number of 2.4 million babies being produced in Uganda every year. The fertility rate of Ugandans varies from region to region. In Bukedea, it is 6.7. Here in Buganda, it's in the range of 5. Busoga, it's a little higher, turning to 6. So the fertility rate is too high. We produce many babies. In Uganda, we have the youngest population. So 2.4 million babies produced every year. And according to the Minister of Education, about 8 years ago, 1.88 million people began primary 1. Began primary what? 1. And only 740 were able to complete primary 7. So 1.14 million people did not complete primary 7. We are seated on a time bomb, ladies and gentlemen. So as you think about the needs, to address the needs, you are aware that garbage in, garbage out. What are you receiving? You are receiving an 18-year guy that is not prepared. Because here we are dealing with, I was told, between 18 and 30. And they're in the range of 21%, 21.3%. How best can we prepare and have a firm foundation, we must think about human capital development. In fact, human capital development for productivity, for increased productivity. When you read the Equal Opportunity Report of last year, where they said that one region is taking jobs, 40% are taking jobs. One region. You had it? You had. You go and read that report. One region. And why? Because they have prepared their people. I'm telling you. They are taking the scholarships. They are educating their people. And they're getting these jobs. Why? Because they are doing something. Well, not in the right way, but we should think of addressing that. So the greatest way to address this matter is to think about human capital development and give it money. The biggest part budget should go there. You know that we have. I tried to address that when I was a mayor through a number of programs. One of them was the feeding. I made sure that I looked for donors to feed my students in these these UPE schools. I began with one. It had 340 students. But when I offered a middle meal, in just 1 year there were 780. And what was bringing them to school? Food. So there is a relationship between food and keeping a child in school. A child cannot study empty stomach. Today, we are looking for buildings in that school. But the children have been excited to go to school. And even the young ones that are not yet of age go with those ones that are of age to just feed. So food is one of them. The WASH programs, I also improved the WASH program to improve the grades. WASH programs. I made sure that they have clean toilets, sanitary pads, so that a girl child can study. The greatest family planning for particularly a girl child is to keep a girl child in school. So we did that and many other interventions. Today, like you said, it is a mere 100,000 that are completing senior 6, which is still basic education. Senior 6 level is basic education. Therefore, we should think about that critically. And this has come at the right time when we are budgeting. So I pledge to make sure that we think about needs. Needs. Those that are
not in employment.
Not in employment.
Not in education.
Not in education.
Not in training.
Not in training.
They are there.
They are there. It is very critical. Also, what I did in Nakawa was to begin skilling. And not only skilling, give them those skills, hard skills, but also include financial literacy. Because you can have a skill, but without a business mind. You can know how to tailor, but you know how to make a business plan. So I taught them, and I remember somehow, somewhere, after teaching, giving them skills, that's when even the presidential initiative came in. I am the one who began the presidential initiative. It was an idea from me. When I was nominated by America as emerging leader in Africa, I was also nominated by Turkey as the most patriotic Ugandan. So those countries took me in their countries, and I saw small cottage industries in their countries. When I came back, I started skilling people under trees. Under trees. That is when I think President Museveni sent Mchala Nachove and Chisanja to come and see how I do it. And well, I showed them how to do it. The unfortunate bit is that they did not. They only gave them a skill in either tailoring, dressing, but they did not give them skills in financial literacy. And at one time, after training my mind, I went to European Union and told them, look, I've trained many in vocation skills. We need startup capital. And said, what proof do you have? I showed them that they graduated. These are the certificates. And they asked me, won't they waste our money? I told them, no. Vocational skills plus financial literacy is equal to success. So I taught them, I gave them skills in financial literacy. And they said, well, that's good. They gave each of my people in a range of 10 to 15 million to begin businesses. So you must be prepared. We must equip our people with the skills so that they can join this competitive world. But most important to note, Commission, as I complete, if we can empower our people with education, make ways of keeping them in schools. I am a typical example. I got an accident. I lost my leg. Had it not been education, I would not be here before you. This leg here you see is artificial. It's artificial. So empower a child. But I want to pledge that I will be of support in making sure that we structure our budget accordingly, according to the needs of the young people.
Thank you.
I am going to be the ambassador, and I'm going to entice other members of parliament to do the same. Otherwise, we are seated on a time bomb if we don't address the issues that you have knocked on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And I will leave.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Researchers have failed to prove that there is anything more transformative than the quality of education that people acquire.
Yeah, but also to note,
so,
we have a very big challenge. Recently, I had a meeting with all the head teachers in my area. We have a new curriculum.
I hope you didn't give them exams.
No, we have a new curriculum. Which new curriculum is basically good. It's good, it's the way to go. But even those that are administering the new curriculum don't know it. The teachers don't know it. So I wonder what our children are learning. You and I started using the old curriculum, and we could best assess our children. A child comes back home, and you help him or her. Today you cannot, because you don't know the curriculum. So we must address that issue as a matter of urgency.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And I think that's one of the statements I started with, is that higher institutions of learning ready to receive the products of the new curriculum. That's an issue for debate. You can raise it on the floor of the House, and I think we are not yet very positioned. Can I get the next comment? Okay, lady in red.
Okay, thank you.
You remind us your names, where you come from, and your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Sylvia Pimer is my name, from Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, and the moderator is my boss. Okay, my colleague. I just wanted one. Mr. Mondo was talking about integration of the skilling with life skills and the SRH. And I was thinking, Mr. Mondo, we are missing a point. Most partners are complaining, especially in the central region. They say even when they have training programs to skill, the young people in the central region are not interested because they want the quick gains, and they see the trainings not providing them with a quick cash they can get, yet the skills would ideally help them for the future. And then the other, when we talk about the employment, especially for the trainings, I was thinking, Mr. Mondo, could there be a way of zoning the trainings? Because we have people in Kapchorwa who are in agriculture, but what type of agriculture? The potatoes, the onions. The ones in my side, in my village, it's the fishing. Could it be an issue of just taking a thing of one size fitting all, and that's why the young people are not interested in the trainings, especially for the youth out of school? Because if we have people benefiting from the trainings in those regions that are beneficial to them, I believe more young people would be attracted to those skills. Because if you're going to train in my area on Irish potatoes, it's useless for someone in my region, but fishing would really work. I believe those are the things that could be helpful for the people. And then the issue of the trainings vis-a-vis the quality of the people we are bringing out. Most people say they can't employ because the people are half-baked. I think those are some of the issues we would be considering, even when we are trying to mainstream youth in employment, education, and training, the issue of the quality. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Andrew Oto Ogweta from Gulu City. I would like to thank the input of the various panelists, although I would like to problematize our approach to who do we consider to be youth and who do we not consider to be youth in the face of the forthcoming National Development Plan. And with Northern Uganda as exports have been put to look at them from a context of independence and being dependent as well. And that forces us to leave certain categories of persons. For the region that I come from, it is sad to note that many fora that talks about young people tends to normalize Northern Uganda to the rest of the country, yet we have different backgrounds. And this has forced us to call normal a situation which is not normal. We have a group of people who should have benefited from a transitional justice policy, which is still yet in the wardrobes of Parliament. And these people are forced to be at par with youth in the rest of the country, yet their situations and backgrounds and competencies are actually very different. A case in point, we have a group of children born in captivity. They are called stateless children. They are over 100,000. They do not know their parents, but they were during the violence. When they came back from the LRA insurgency, civil society now tends to call them stateless children. They do not know their parents, they do not know their clans, and they are forced to fend for themselves. Yes. So where do we leave such a group of people? Because we are forcing and trying to bring them at par with the rest. Yet their
so you are saying,
different.
Mr. Ogeta, you are saying those are part of the need. Because somebody was asking, where are these people? And the other day when I was driving to Arua, in every trading center, I was seeing many young men seated in the trading centers, doing nothing, perhaps counting vehicles. I didn't see many girls, but so many boys. And I thought that, okay, this is what Hamis has been telling me. These are part of the neat people. So you want us to carve those stateless people or termed as stateless as part of the need.
Rightfully said.
And then we do what? Because what I want in this meeting, because I was told that majority of you are leaders, and I was reading from somebody called Cousin, not for Cousin. Some of you enjoy for Cousin wine. I'm talking about the other cousin, Norman Cousin. He said that victims recite problems. Leaders provide solutions. We want solutions. What do we propose?
Well, I think NEET should focus on how it would be able to balance up and fill the deficit of the absence of a TJ policy in its informative approach to the context of post-conflict societies. That is my contribution. Thank you.
Mugulu City, one of the best cities in this country. Thank you. Next, very brief.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. My name is Pasi Nanteza Rebecca, Councillor representing Female Youths of Kawempe Division. Now, my suggestion is localizing all these concepts while using the down-up approach, because the flow of information is the barrier to all the policy we are trying to achieve. Localizing this concept would help people down there to understand what they need to do and how to do it. Because the question of this dialogue is when and where. Commissioner Mondo mentioned something that Professor said, what we are supposed to do today was meant to be done yesterday, or what we are doing today was meant to be done yesterday. So we are always late and we are out of time.
Thank you. So talking to the people and people informing interventions. Go up to the end. No. Take one region up to the end, then you go to the other region.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, Moderator. I want to first of all thank, my name is Nixon Ochatre. I work with AMA Initiative as Head of Strategy and Partnership. I want to thank Open Space for the platform. Since I just want to give you in one quick recommendation, as Commissioner was mentioning earlier on, the issue is that who are they, where are they? When I was reading through the policy document that has been proposed by Open Space, I proposed that we also include the role of family, the role of parents, especially on the 5.7% of the youth who are not in employment, not in education, but also not looking for anything. So basically, if you go back, you can't talk about youth who are not anywhere without looking at where they come from. That is the role of the family, the role of the parents need to be integrated within this policy document to ensure that at the end of the day, we address the root cause of the issues around youth employment, because at the end of the day, the family is critical as a part of the solution. Thank you very much.
Now, Nixon, when you add that to Ogweta, then it means we are going to add another letter on it. Not in employment, not in education, not in training, and not in the family. What do we do?
So that's the dilemma in which you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Be as quick as your neighbor.
Surely. Thank you so much, Commissioner, colleagues. I think the most appropriate way to go about all these issues that have been raised is to be more deliberate or even more serious about the devolution agenda. Putting more power, putting more resources to our communities, mostly on ground. And especially those communities that are already doing something in producing. Take, for instance, as a colleague mentioned here, what is very relevant for Kalangala might not necessarily be important for Karamoja because of their histories, because of what they are doing economically. But also the kind of education that is relevant for them is different from region to region. Take, for instance, in Kalangala, their main activity being fish. I think we need to be to be educating them on how to take care of the lake, on how to fish, on how their engineering should be focused on how to construct boat engines, on how to construct the boat itself, so that at the end of the day, when you go to Kalangala, you see an entire economy of boat making, of engineering that is based on the lake, conservation that's based on the lake, fishing, value addition on the fish, the entire chain of value and technology and marketing that is based on that.
You are loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Zoning. Okay. That is the last one, that side. Then we migrate to this side. Starting from the back.
While I was skimming through the policy paper, I noticed that there's not anywhere it mentions about how internet access can be an enabler for those who are not in education, for those who are not in employment and don't have access to training. My name is Ntegeke Cliff, and I'm part of the organizing committee for the Uganda Internet Governance Forum. And I really feel that if we can enable at least for every school to have access to internet, yeah, it can be a starting point for us to have people have access to knowledge. Now that we have the new curriculum, which is heavily on research, yeah, if a child comes back home and they have access to internet, they can be able to complete their work easily. If they are at school and the school has good facilities for the school labs, yeah, it can also be an enabler. Thank you.
Thank you. All this time I'm also waiting to hear somebody mentioning those girls I find every day when I'm leaving office around Fairway, Nairo Avenue there, around those hotels. Are they part of NIT, or you think they are profitably employed? But let me hear from the next contributor.
Thank you very much. My name is Tumewazi Oswald. So personally, I think that some have been in education before and have left. Some have been born and have not had a chance to go to school. Now, I don't know if there has been some research done to assess whether, to get the causes as why some do not go to school. Maybe they hate school, or maybe there are factors that cause them not to go to school. Then after getting those, then you can know how to begin on addressing such issues. Thank you.
Let me clarify. The report, because I've read it, and I've read it several times, indicates that majority of the people in NEET, they either possess no education, or at most, they possess primary education. Next contributor.
Yes, thank you so much. Mr. Moderator, I want to express my dissatisfaction with the action of our leaders you invited today. Because you see, most of our leaders are too schooled in knowledge that they do not want to listen. They deliver their part of the story and leave. And it is not good. Please make sure this response is given to them. Positive feedback. Secondly,
I will.
I think it is very unfortunate that I witnessed a lot of selfish argumentation here. The problem of Uganda is not a general problem. And if we talk about population, we must localize population. Where I come from in Kilak North, where I'm going to be the next member of parliament, there is a very critical need for our population to increase. Acholi sub-region, which consists of less than 3 million people, sit on about 30% of the most arable land in Uganda. And that is why we face population pressure. So if you NGOs are going to come to my region, please school our people so they can increase population. Let that be taken in good faith. I also do not think that Uganda honestly now needs to start putting efforts in curbing birth. Just because we cannot actually provide service to our people does not mean we should be selfish to stop them from giving birth. there's a problem with the system that we need to address. Because if 1.8 million people can enroll to school and only 800,000 can finish, that means we have school that could allow 1.8 million enroll and finish. Why did they not finish? I think the other thing I need to talk about seriously is that I'm a student of Musevenomics, and if you read Musevenomics, he believes that majority of Ugandans are actually agrarian economy. And to transform Uganda, you need to do two things. You need to encourage agriculture and make agricultural industrialization and agribusiness development is very key. If you look at the size of Uganda, Uganda is too big. Compared with Israel, for example, Israel's arable land is just less than 1% of Uganda's arable land. And with that less than 1% arable land, Israel is able to keep 10 million, close to 10 million Israelis and migrants. And if you look at the balance in the equation here, it is interesting. Because whereas the whole of Uganda, with the more than 99.9% of Israeli land, we have only 4,000 tractors. And Israel has about 48,000 tractors in that 0.1%. So I think the problem is not that we cannot feed our people. The problem is that we are tackling the wrong problem. Unless we are able to critically think about these problems by ensuring that we employ the right approach without emotions to understanding how we can better develop this country, we are going to mislead this country. And secondly, in a very important area, I also want to talk about the fact that we cannot be too egocentric. We cannot be looking at Uganda only. There is a need for us as leaders to encourage young people to also source opportunities out there. The population of Ugandans who live and thrive outside Uganda is only 660,000 people. That represents less than 1.5% of our population. If you look at Ethiopia, for example, through its public-private partnership, through its diaspora bond, a lot of money is coming into the country because there are Ethiopians who are outside Ethiopia and are working for money. I don't think limiting birth, for example, is key. The idea is when we are building a national development plan, we should be able to look at the need of the future. And the need of the future does not only mean the need of Uganda. It also means what does Africa need. I think as Museveni is trying to integrate the region and open up market, we should be able to skill our children and our youth to exploit these opportunities. And I think this should actually be taken into perspective before. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Kidega Amos Paunyak, I would not mention my name.
Future member of parliament. Thank you. But let me put this clear to the youth leaders who are here. The population question in this country is not about the numbers. It's about the quality of the numbers. And the issue has been said very clearly that can we have Ugandans produce the children they can afford to look after in terms of educating them, in terms of health needs, in terms of sleeping well, in terms of dressing well. Because at the end of the day, it's the education of the children that is going to determine the quality of the people we are talking about. Even President Museveni has also shifted from what he used to think that a big population equals a big market. If you have a big population that is not schooled and poor, it will not have effective demand. The economist and planner here will tell you that big populations does not necessarily mean big demand. And a future MP, you reminded me of the former LC5 of Luwero, Haji Naduli. He used to encourage people to produce. And one time he was asked, what I'm going to ask you, how many children do you have?
3 for now.
3 for now.
But also, I need to tell you one thing, Mr. Moderator, I will not rise up again.
What's your target?
Let us stay very specific. I do not want you to deviate me. The thing is, you do not need someone to go through primary 1 to primary 5 to become a tractor driver. And yet, you can pay someone expensively if you are able to build systems that can turn our redundant land into active agriculture. I do not think that your argumentation that everyone has to go to be schooled through the normal system really makes sense to me, because it doesn't. It doesn't. The reason is that we focus too much on people who have gone to school, and we fail to look for opportunities and utilize those that have not gone to school.
Okay, we shall continue the debate and see where we end, but Dr. Hammings, take a note of that argument. You still see we have people who are entrenched in numbers. Let me get the next contributor. I'll be winding up here. You'll be the last here.
Thank you, moderator. And I want to thank the organizers for this platform. It is a good one, especially for us, the youth. My name is Ainebiona Marion, and I just completed my university, and I've not graduated yet. So currently, I am unemployed. So I want to tell you something that most of youth we are facing right now. I've been applying in different companies, schools, because I did education, literature, English. But every school I go to, they tell me they want a working experience of 2-5 years or something. I had plans of starting up a business or any organization, but registering it requires money, which I don't have right now. Which resolutions can we give youth who are like me right now? We don't have where to go. We don't know where we can start from because of the unfairness of the economy that is in Uganda right now. I know very many youth here, they have evidence. Then another point I want to talk about is decentralization of youth conferences like these ones. I finished my university in Kampala University, and I happened to go to Kisoro to see how people around behave. Do you know how many youth out there who are in Kisoro suffering because they don't have any platforms like these ones? And the conferences we get, the platforms we have, they are decentralized. They are here in the central. Which plans do you have for those people who are out there? They have ideas, but they don't have platforms to share their ideas. So I urge you, the leaders who are here, maybe you can help us. Some of us are there stuck, but we don't have what to do. Even another thing, invitations. You cannot come to this conference when you've not been invited. So how about those youth who have ideas, they don't have platforms, and they cannot be invited? So think about that.
And that's why you ran away from Kavali.
Yes, because...
And on a later note, Maureen.
Me, I'm a woman with great expectations, and I'm very ambitious. I know I'm going to make it, but that's why I try to fight through. I come to places even when I've not been invited. I find myself there. Thank you so much.
Ainebiona, on a lighter note, may you also think that your name has disadvantaged you, because it says you have everything. And so, anyway, that's on a lighter note. Let's continue.
Hello, my name is Mukanzanyo Diana, and I want to first answer her question for job opportunities, where they're asking for experience. Most times it's not about the jobs, it's about the internships and volunteerism. You're going to find most youths don't want to volunteer for free, they want to volunteer for money. So that is at a disadvantage for us youth. So one of the things we have been speaking about is education and unemployed youth. One of the things we are not really critically looking at is the disabled people. We are going to find...
Now keep it there, the disabled people. Dr. Hamis Mugendawala has to leave. Can you allow me have him respond to 1 or 2 things before he goes?
Okay.
Keep it there. Keep the mic there. Mugendawala has another mic here.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. For me, I came mostly to listen to the voices of the young people as we continue writing the National Development Plan. And I must say that we are willing to listen even more. NPA is just across there. Please, NDP IV, we engaged a lot with the Youth Council. And this time, we want to keep it even unstructured, so much so that if there is a youth who is not coming in as part of a formal group, it's okay to speak to us. I sit on the core committee that is drafting the NDP IV. We finished meeting the president for 2 days to discuss the strategic direction, and he gave in his recommendations as well that we are working on, and now we are going for a marathon of parallel activities where the ministries, departments, and agencies will be writing their plans as well as it feeds into the national plan and then the local government. So you are a formidable force that should be engaged actively at the different layers of planning. Don't ignore local government planning. Please go to your sub-counties, districts, and get engaged in the planning, because these are the frontliners. NPA doesn't implement, we do the planning, but the frontliners implement. And if you stay outside the process, it becomes a challenge. I wanted to make that note. Chair, most of the issues were for me to note, mainly. But I will just respond to just a few because I've been summoned back. Now, there is an issue of population debate. I must say that whereas we may think Uganda is having a big population, if you compare it with the other countries for which it is a similar size, their populations are bigger. The only challenge Uganda has with its population is quality, where you're having majority not being educated, majority not having a skill. We are not talking about education as only formal, no. Having a skill does not mean that you need to go into a formal institution. What we should be fighting for is a quality population. It can be a big population, but a population that can produce and earn, not a population that produces for just the stomach. That is the message. And Commissioner Mond has always been consistent on that. You saw this guy from Butaleja who has 102 from 28 wives. I don't know how he manages this, but he was appealing to everyone for support. Is that the population you're looking for? That you give birth and then you start appealing to the neighbors, to the leadership around for food, for what? I don't think that is the population we are looking for. If such a guy was boasting that I have 102 and each of them has a skill, they can feed themselves, I wouldn't have any single issue with such a guy. But where you're having children and you're looking at others to burden them, to bring them up, I am against that. So with population issues, the message is have the children that you wish to have, as long as they can be of quality. And being of quality is they can produce, they can earn, and they don't depend on any other person. Lastly, it's the issue of tagging training to the local economy. I spent a lot of time at Iowa State University in the US. It is an agricultural community. When you look at university education in the United States, it's tagged to the local economy. So you'll find Silicon Valley in California, mainly the training there emphasizing AI, technologies, and all that fintech. Now when you come to Iowa State, which is an agriculture state, the training is so much in turning maize into biodiesel to run the cars. So it's running around what you produce and what you make. It is very important to do it here. The challenge the country is still a poor country to have highly varied curriculum. It will not manage to finance it. And I just want to be honest with you. I don't want to appease anyone here. A varied curriculum where you say, okay, if I go to Busoga, we are going to teach this and that. What does it mean? It means that the textbooks will be specifically for that region in particular language. You'll have to have teachers for particularly that and all the rest and technologies. The country is not yet to that level to have a highly varied curriculum. I think we can start moving towards that, as you are saying. Now, when we had oil in Bunyoro, the training in Bunyoro is a little bit biased towards oil and gas. And I think slowly by slowly we can get there. But we cannot say that now, from now going on, we have regional curricula. I must say thank you very much for this opportunity for me to listen to you young people. And the National Planning Authority is very much open for more dialogue. I must say thank you to Open Space for even thinking about us, by the way. It's an institution that sometimes it's not so popular because it's located in a place which is a little bit isolated. Also, some people think that to be an NPA, you must have a PhD. Okay, there are so many PhDs in NPA, but it doesn't have anything to do with the people who collaborate with us. We collaborate with any person, and I would encourage any of you to come. If you want to meet me, it is okay still. Just come in and ask, I want to see Dr. Hamis Mugendawala. Please be careful, because we are two people there who with confusing names. The executive director, who is my boss, is Dr. Joseph Muvawala. Me, I'm Dr. Hamis Mugendawala. So you may come and say, I want to see Muvawala. Then they will take you to the executive director. You understand? So maybe if you are confused, the other one is Catholic, I'm Muslim. Thank you very much, and I wish you the best.
Dr. Hamis Mugendawala, not Muvawala. Let's emphasize that. I think let's listen to the lady. She was talking about disability. I want to spend the next 5 minutes, then we do the closing.
Okay.
So, rush.
Okay, then. We have to also be specific, because we have been looking more at the physical. We have been looking at more of the physical disability, but we also have to look at the neurological disability like autism, Down syndrome, and cerebral palsy, because they are also involved in that. Then something else I want to talk about is regional representation, because we are talking about bilateral integration. We can have a lot of participation because there are ongoing conversations towards Summit of the Future in September. We are having the CSO conference in May, where all different CSOs and youth can participate and have a say, because with this zero draft, which is packed for the future, all the member states of the UN can have a say, like they sign, and all the UN member states can implement these things. So if we have more youth participation, we can have an integration with that. Then if we look at the proposed intervention of NDP IV, there's something connected to tax and investment incentives. We have to be so keen on that, because as she said, like, there are a lot of youth who have a lot of things to do, but things concerning URA is limiting them. So that is a big discussion we should have as youth in this country.
Thank you. The second last one. The hand here, then I'll end with the lady here.
Thank you. My name is Ruth Chitamirike. I am a PhD fellow at Makerere. My question is coming from what the brother from Gulu said, and partly what Dr. Mugendawala mentioned. And it's firstly to you, Commissioner. Have we ratified the African Youth Charter as Uganda?
Come again?
Have we ratified the African Youth Charter as a country?
African Youth Charter. We ratified in 2007.
Okay. Because what I wanted to say is, there you we need to understand that youths are not a homogeneous category, as the lady mentioned. And bearing into the African Youth Charter, why I asked is that the scope of a definition of a youth stretches to up to 35 years. And yet I noticed the conversations that have been going on in the room are limiting it to 30. I know there is domestication that can happen, but I think key to why it is 35 in the charter is to take into consideration circumstances such as what shapes the people, say, from northern Uganda. That these are youths, but the circumstances that have shaped their lives cannot be the same. So even as we are planning interventions, maybe can we have a way to, as Doctor was saying, varied education, even say we can have varied modes of intervention, that say for places, say Uganda or everywhere, we are looking at programs within a category of people. When it gets to areas such as northern Uganda, which have a specific history, we can stretch some of these things, because that way we can be able to cater for more youths, but also, say for example, a 25-year-old in Buganda, or who has grown up in Kampala, the circumstances they've been faced with may not be the same as, say, a 25-year-old who has a history of having been a child soldier, or who even has been referred to for the longest time of their life as a stateless child. So if we can integrate some of these things, maybe the interventions will be more holistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm Lauben Senyonjo, the LC5 Councillor, Mukono District. I would appreciate the interventions that the central government, SSOs, different partners have come up with. But now, the representatives from the NPA, the way they presented, it doesn't differ from even other technocrats from ministries, agencies, authorities. On paper, well. But now, if it comes to implementation, we have the best strategies that can handle. My colleagues have mentioned zoning. If you go under PDM, there are different enterprises that must be formed. If you're in the landing site, fishing site, of course you create those enterprises that fits you there. But now, the issue is on implementing these strategies, these policies.
Can you propose?
So
how
I
do we implement them? What has not been done? What, in your view, as a critical thinker, do you want us to do going forward, NDP IV?
Okay, thank you. I propose that in coming up with these strategies, these policies, if they are targeting young people, let us have drafters of these strategies, including the young people, because they are for young people. Look at, you mentioned the local government. I would give you an example. Yes, we are the ones to implement, now for the case of PDM, but you have just brought the strategy for us to implement. There was no input of ours during the starting point. What do you expect? Do you expect a result at the end? So let us have meaningful, not just participation. Because it's totally different.
Let me say this way. NDP IV has not been written. NDP IV is under construction. And you are here to co-create. So we are saying, what is your piece that you want to see in NDP IV? We are still under NDP III, which is ending next year. And so nothing is there yet. And that's why Dr. Hamis was telling you, you can even walk in his office, come up with your ideas, either from Kalangala, Fukoto, Masulita, wherever. Say, these are my views. So don't run away. We want, what is your view? What do you want to see? We are co-creating.
One, I need to see meaningful access to capital by young people. The strategies they are coming up towards financing, we need to see that meaningful access. Because the ones that have been there, there are many restrictions. Let it be capital youth venture fund.
The point is access to capital investment.
Then,
Can you pass on the mic? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I'm called Mukisha Bruce. I work with Bushenyi District Youth Network. I just want to contribute 3 things, and I will just list them. If we want to work with the youth, you said you are coming from Guru, you met people on trading centers. They are not seated doing nothing. They are drinking. They are taking cigarettes. Let's deal with the rehabilitation.
Where do they get the money to drink?
They will get. I don't want to go into details. Let's do with rehabilitation first. Let's get those people, we rehabilitate them. 2, let's mark on their mindset change. As one of the ICTs in the PTM things like 7 there, we do on their mindset. So if we can do those 2, rehabilitate and work on their mindset, then we can come in and skill. If we start with skilling, then we shall end with the other things you are saying, Emioga and Antikwa. They will also die like the rest. But let's now start by rehabilitating those youths who are not either in education and employment. We do mindset change and then skill them. Thank you.
Before you give her the microphone,
yes.
Government is discussing, and we are coming up with a national service scheme as part of the answer to mindset change. It is going to be not voluntary, it's going to be mandatory. That at a certain point in time of youth growing up, you are subjected to a 1-year mandatory national service scheme to change the way you look at the world, to make you more patriotic, to accept unity and diversity, to get to know the symbols of the country. You know, we are here, but if I told you that we stand up and sing the national anthem from stanza 1 to 3, you will see people dropping off at stanza 1. Stanza 2, it will be a problem. I stay somewhere in Chira, and when there is a big march, there's a lot of movement of young people holding the Uganda flag, or what they think is the Uganda flag. Sometimes they are holding the German flag. You know, the German flag and Ugandan flag, which they share the colors, but the order matters. So we have a category of people who don't know even their flag. Talk about the values that people are talking about. All these are things that are intended to be imparted through a national service scheme. What is your take about a national service scheme as one of the solutions to instilling into people a sense of understanding of the country, but also mindset change?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Myself, I took a course in Changwanz in 2014. I think if that institute was not put in under politics as NRM, I think that would be the very much institution that will deal with mindset change of Ugandans. Because now when they transform to NRM cadres, because it would serve to all Ugandans who have either attended P7 or senior 4, the knowledge you get from Nali, the Changwanza I was for 6 months, is not the way people will now get it when they go there, because now it serves another thing. So make sure that that policy you are bringing up don't also go to serve the party. Because the policies come on paper as good, but on implementation...
Now we have started doing what we said.
No, I'm not
criticizing national programs. I have seen the Kampala leaders were targeted the other day. They were taken to Chankwaz. Are they NRM cadres?
And that's what I'm talking. If we
I've
don't
also seen public servants.
If we don't put it in politics,
taken,
then the sense there is very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hand over the microphone to the last one. You are the final. Then I get back to the panel, and then we shall do the closing.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. My name is Sandra Namarome. I work with Ministry of Local Government under the Local Economic Development Department. PDM is a vehicle that is operationalizing led local economic development. When I received the invitation, it had high-level National High Level Youth Dialogue on NDP IV. National, that's a big one. I don't know the representation that we have here, but I hope that we are nationally covered so that a youth who is not here will receive this information and be included as well. So when PDM started, if you were aware, and the politics around it, with the naysayers saying it will not work, yeah? His Excellency, the President of Uganda, said it will work. And indeed, we have seen it work in some instances, in spite of the negativities that have been found along the way. But why am I bringing this up? How many of you here, if I may start with a question, are deeply involved with government initiatives? By show of hands, how many here have benefited from Youth Livelihood Program? Just by show of hands. No hand has gone up. How many here have benefited from PDM, or you know your neighbor, or a mother, or a sister, or a cousin? How many? We have some hands, about 3 hands, Commissioner. You can see. But we are on policy dialogue for national development initiatives. My point is, until we get involved and understand what is it in it for me as a youth leader. I was part of the National Youth Council back then in 2011 to 2016. The lady that spoke and said she doesn't have a job currently. How is your human capital development? How have you positioned yourself, yeah, to ensure that what you have, because by the time you finish school, you have all the resources to actually make it. You're much better than somebody who has not gone to school. There are so many organizations where you can volunteer. I volunteered with Makerere University after my school as a volunteer. That Kahila is not driving. I would climb it for a period of 1.5 years. And while there, I got an opportunity for my master's degree. And I flew out, and my life has never been the same again. So you have to develop yourself as a youth. Because who is a leader? I want to believe everyone here is somehow like a youth leader. A leader is someone with a following. How are you going to take people where you have not been? Currently, is he Hajara? The one who presented, Rehema, presented and said the Youth Livelihood Program has been revamped. 631 million is up for grabs among 75 youth groups. Are you in any youth group? Anyone here? Are you part of the people that are going to benefit that money? You know, there are people who say that Mark, is it the founder of WhatsApp or Facebook, and his friend founded this, yeah? The founder of so-and-so founded this. You and your friend, what are you founding? You've seen that joke on WhatsApp. When you look about, when you're consulting amongst your inner circle, what are you coming up with? How are you tapping into the opportunities the government has brought up? Emyoga is a program that is helping youth. Let me tell you people, no one is going to become rich by one stream of income, like by salary alone, unless of course you're in certain authorities, yeah? And even then you need a very good mindset change for you to make it. How are you taking advantage of these programs to empower someone on your village to say, let us involve ourselves like this, and we start like a saloon, we start maybe a bakery, we start this, because the market is there. PDM, whereas pillar number 3 of financial inclusion has been the mostly talked about probably in the last 2 years, of course because of the monies involved, but now we are working backwards to ensure that everything, all MDAs, ministries, departments, agencies come on board to operationalize all the 7 pillars of PDM, and mindset change cannot be emphasized, Commissioner. As I'm winding up, you mentioned that what can we do? What do we do to go ahead? PDM has its target group, the 39%, to move them from the subsistence to the money economy, whereby we'll have people producing more than they can eat. What have you decided to do as a youth? We have WhatsApp. It's a marketing platform. You have friends. Some of you drive cars. Some people are very creative. They do car boot sales, Commissioner. After you meet them, after a cup of coffee, I have a friend. She moves with earrings. You don't just leave her. Yeah? By the time you leave, you've left a 5K or a 10K with her. So if she meets 5 people, that's 25,000 that she's taking back home with. It's an initiative. And yet we work together. Other people lend money. They know that around, for some people, in case government salaries delay, yeah, people will need money, okay? Someone positions themselves and says, yes, at an interest, 10%, 15%. They're making an extra income. So until you sit down and decide where you are and where you want to go, I can assure you that we are thinking some people are very old, but very soon, even as our age will catch up with them. You have to make decisions of your life. And now I'm not talking generally because I'm a government worker, no. But how have you divided your life? Your life is divided into probably the economic, in terms of working, your social life. Who are your social friends? You know? Do you have a plan of when you want to probably get married, for those who are interested, and get married to who? It's another shortcut to becoming rich for some people, okay? So analyze your life and decide, where am I socially? If you don't have a job, who has a job? Where can I volunteer? How can I update myself? How many of you visit even websites? Some people buy a drink, go to nice places, sit down when they are smart, either with a laptop or something, a notebook. They buy a soda of 3,000 or 5,000, depending on where you're buying it from, even 10,000, I think, for Protea. But while there, they meet people. Strategy. Tuchita kwetega. Okay? So as a youth, it is high time that you do not wait. In summary, invest in acquiring knowledge, invest in getting involved. There is no one who is going to come and give you money, unless they are your mother or your husband, or probably you've inherited. Invest in knowledge. When you're studying knowledge, it's not easy. Mr. Emma Chitamirike is right behind there. He was one of my supervisors when I was doing my a youth policy fellowship with Conrad at the Noah Steve Tang. And I remember my paper in research, I was writing about BitVet and the skill gap that is needed for the country to actually go forward. I did my first master's immediately after my degree. I did my second master's. So how are you investing in yourself? At the universities, there are scholarships. Right now, I'm part of initiatives. Do you know that there are schools that offer bursaries as long as you're a bright person, or you're an orphan, or you're a champion in school, or you're good at sports? So opportunities are there, but how have you positioned yourself to take advantage of those opportunities? That's a question I leave with you. Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner, someone wants to talk on behalf of the disabilities. For disabilities, he was pointing.
Thank you. My name is Simbi John Mary. I work with the Share Abilities Uganda, a youth organization. Mine is all about, Commissioner hinted on it. That's why I wanted. My appeal is knowing where these needs are and categorize them. Because once you lump them together, you will never understand. Like youth with disabilities, other speakers have mentioned, they have their challenges right away from the homes. They don't have access to education. When they come to communities, those ones who have attended school, during employment, they are discriminated against. And even when they are employed, accessibility to their offices is also another problem. So my solution is that let us categorize these needs such that we know their needs. And when we are giving solutions, they are handy in their dockets. Thank you very much.
Colleagues would have loved to continue, but we didn't book the whole day at this place. We booked for a half day. And I want to thank you for the meticulous discussion that we have had this day. For one of the first times, yeah, clap if you must clap. For the first time in a long time, I have engaged with youth and I didn't hear people shouting at each other, people shooting down at the other, even when there are various parties in this room. I think that's very important. That's very important because we are looking for reason, not emotion. My colleague has said it so rightly, that government policies are not shaped by emotions. You can be emotional about something, but we look for reason. And so you must convince somebody. So I have enjoyed this far. But let me have my panelists say their parting shots, then we go into the closing ceremony. Let me start this way, because at first I started this way. Your parting shots.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and everyone that has engaged. My parting shots is, let's endeavor as young people, as a country, to listen to each other, regardless of the emotions or the feelings. Let's try to listen to each other. Only when we listen to each other is when we will come up with a compromising situation, a win-win situation that works for all of us. And also, to the stakeholders, let's try and engage with a huge range of stakeholders. Let's have a feel on everyone and what they think should work best in the situation or in the development of the NDP IV. And lastly, let's have full capacity buildings, not capacity building of only young people, but the people that are going to work with young people, the people that are allocating funds, the people that are implementing these programs of young people. Can we have full capacity building so that people know how to relate with these groups of young people? And for the young people, opportunity meets a prepared person. Unless you're prepared, no opportunity is going to find you. Prepare yourself if you want to go ahead in life. I thank you.
Thank you. This side.
Thank you so much, Commissioner and everyone. I would end by emphasizing just a few things. The first one is that we need to catch young people while they are still young. There is a study that we made, and we divided young people into two categories: those that are older, above 24, and those that are a little younger. And results were shocking. The ones that are above 24 years, they already gotten into issues of, marriage. Their interests are, I need a car, I think I need a good house, a self-contained house. But for the young ones, they are so inquisitive. So for everything that you give to them, they are willing to learn. They are willing to take it up because they are not now engaged in a lot of responsibilities. So that brings me back to our definition of youth. I don't know if we need to rethink how we define youth. Because if you look at the UN, how the UN defines youth, you must be between, I think it's 24 years. 24 years. But imagine us up to 30 years. So that determines how we plan. That is why you have an education system where someone takes a lot of time. A young person thinks of, spending all these years in school. They can only get out of school if they've gotten to university when they are 23 years. That's a lot of time. A child somewhere in America at 23, they've done a lot because they left school a little earlier. So I think we might need to rethink that. And then the other thing that I would talk about is that I think as a national planning authority, given that we are still engaging them, we need to have strategies of how we engage with the private sector. There is potential in the private sector taking on the needs and skilling them or training them. But they cannot do that if government is not coming in to support them, because that takes part of their time, it takes part of their money. So if government can intentionally go in to support the private sector, I think they can take on some of these needs to ensure that they are training on a job. Then the other thing that I want to end with is that as young people, we need to get interested and involved in the budget, in the budgeting process. Because you see, if the National Planning Authority puts together the National Development Plan, this plan can only be actualized through the national budget. But how much are we engaging with that process? how much are we mobilizing young people to get involved with that process? Because if you look at this NDP that we are closing, most of it has not been implemented. Why? Because of our budget and how we are budgeting as a country. So as young people, we need to get involved in those discussions and ensure that the country is budgeting right and is budgeting or putting youth issues as priorities of the national budget. And then the other one that I can end with is, I think we have over-centralized. I would agree with the people who say that I think we need to get down and think about the local council system at the village level. The research that we did, when we asked these young people, okay, when you have an issue or any problem, which leader do you run up to first? It is the local council one office. But where are we investing the resources? Yeah? We are seeing MPs and other people getting a lot of money, but there is a local council one. In the districts where we work, we were influencing some bylaws. They told us, go and influence at LC1 level, because if an LC1 gets something, they will implement it, they will monitor it, because their jurisdiction is kind of like small. But I think that is an office that has been neglected, so going forward, I think it's one of the areas that we can think about.
Thank you. Thank you very much. She ends on a very good note. And Mr. Ashraf, we are looking forward to having the Sheraton at Point 4. Communique. You will choose who is going to accompany you so that we present it to the National Planning Authority. We are expecting that we are going to have everything here has been captured, and therefore our next step is to see that many of the things we have talked about, including the last point she makes, is the local government system working, my friend. Are we seeing so many things happening under the nose of the LOCs? Are we seeing people who are zealous about the next election and they don't take people to book? I was reading New Vision a few days ago, and it said that 14 million Ugandans defecate in open space. How can that be? In the 21st century, 14 million in open space. I was also reading the other day that 9.2 million Ugandans cannot read or write in the 21st century. But also you continue seeing, does any of you come from Rengo? Me, I used to like that man, my colleague. That man who was in Rengo as LC5 chairperson. I think that was a good method of doing things. Because if you are going to tell people to clean their own homesteads in the 21st century, I told you I was driving from Arua yesterday, and I saw children, school going time, not going to school. But there are all these LCs there. Somebody said that Uganda is one of the most over-governed states in the world. You have from LC1 to LC5, and they have cabinets. Even the LC1 has a cabinet. It has Secretary for Defense, Women, and it goes on up to LC5. Then you have the DISO. You have the RISO. You have the RDC. You have the PISO. You have the GISO. Then you go to the side of the cow. You have the cow. You have a deputy cow. You have the workers there, a community development officer, education officer, health officer, name it. You go religion. You have the bishop. You have the reverends. You go Muslim. You have the sheikhs. You have the chief qadi. You go, then you have the imam. Then you go, even if you want to go tradition, you have the Chabazinga. And under the Chabazinga, there are other local leaders. You have women council leaders. You have youth council leaders. You have leaders for people with disability. You have leaders for the elderly. You have leaders for the dying. And then when you go into medicine, you have the witch doctors. They also have their leadership in there. But despite all these leadership strands, we still have these problems that would have been problems of the 19th century. I have shared with Chitamirike severally, and I tell him that my father was a chief. And you know, when the chief those days was walking through the village would shake. Those who have not paid the tax will go hiding. Those who don't have enough food will go hiding. Those who have not, those without toilets, it will be my sister. That's when local government was real local government. These local government politicians of these days, they are just looking at the next vote, and they don't care about these children who are not going to school, who are going to be underneath, and who are going to turn up to become a problem. So I liked that last bit of yours, that can we look, among others, that we reform the local government. I want also to end before I hand over. It is again Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs said, and I quote, "It is people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world who do." We need to be a little crazy and say, well, every generation has a mission. What is your mission as young people? What's that, other than all the time saying, government should do this, government should do the other. We should also be asking ourselves, what do we resolve to do as young men and women? Like she is, I'm also a product of the youth councils in this country. I was in the first youth council. As a chairman of one of the districts I will not mention, because you will start discriminating against me. I'm simply a Ugandan, and I come from one of the districts in this country. I have never regretted having served in the youth council. On the issue that I don't want to remain with me, there are two things. That you see, J.F. Kennedy said, and again I quote, that things don't happen. Things don't happen. Things are made to happen. And who makes things happen? It's you and me. The world will not change simply by looking at it and saying a change will come. Because that reminds me when I was young, we would sit around the road and start counting cars and say, the first one is mine, the second one is mine. And the war could start from there. No, I said the third was mine. Now, how could come? You are saying it's yours. You know, we were young and hopeless. But things don't just happen. You don't say, that car is mine, and it becomes your car. You have to work for that car. And in the world, Robin Sharma says, in the world, we don't always get what we want, but we get what we work for. If we want change in the way things happen, we must work for the change. Finally, to the annoyance of my friend who believes in big numbers, I believe in small numbers. And I want to emphasize and request you, young men and women, produce only the number of children you can afford to look for. Nobody has contracted you to produce and fill the world. Nobody. Even when the Bible says, I think in Genesis somewhere, that go multiply, fill the world. I don't know what the Quran says for Ashraf, but Ashraf believes in 3, is it 3 or 4? 4 wives and of. But also there is a disclaimer that if you can afford to give them equal treatment and equal love. And so, since nobody contracted you to produce to fill the world, produce only the children you can afford. As a commissioner for the young people, I meet street children almost every day. And the calls I receive, including from Emma Chitamirike, saying, Mondo, what are you doing? Why are street children here? And I ask him, have you interviewed any of them and you found out they are biological children of Mondo? I says, no, I didn't talk to them. But they think that all children belong to me. Why are street children there? Because people are producing in excess. If you produced 2 or 3, you cannot afford even for a single day not to see any of your child. You want to know, where is Divine? Where is Bryce? Where is John? You know, you are interested in knowing that. But if God himself produced only one child, who are you to produce 10? Can you afford in this economy to look after 10 children? You can't. But even the only son of God didn't produce a child at all. He was busy in other things. I want to thank you, and may God bless you. I hand over to Ashraf, and Ashraf allow me multiply myself by 0. I'm going to receive the new minister. They changed my minister, so I'm going to receive Honorable Baram. Thank you.
One round of applause for the commissioner. Please, the panel stand up for a picture before he leaves. I've been following the commissioner for quite some time. I didn't know he's this a coward.